The US at this year's G20 summit did not cast a blight on South Africa, hosting one of the political world's most prestigious gathering in Africa for the first time. The group of 20 leaders gathering ended in Johannesburg yesterday, with President Cyril Ramaphosa saying he had achieved his goal of putting Africa and its development agenda at the forefront of the economic bloc. Now, he says it's for leaders to act on their commitments. Lindsay Dentlinger takes a look.
Whether by broadcast glitch or a tactical move, President Cyril Ramaphosa dispensed with the G20's most crucial test right off the bat by tabling a declaration for adoption straight after opening remarks, which was streamed live across the world. And while Argentina expressed dissent after the fact, the rest of the bloc were in agreement.
Our agreement on a declaration during this summit demonstrates the value of the G20 as a forum that can facilitate joint action on issues of shared concern.
As European leaders were huddled on the sidelines dealing with the Ukraine-Russia war, global peace emerged as a resolution of this meeting.
We have called for an end to conflicts and wars around the globe.
The G20 has also pledged to support low and middle-income countries to confront the debt that is impacting infrastructure development and the transition to cleaner energy. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Nasrec.
Meanwhile, police say security measures will remain in place to ensure the smooth departure of heads of state and international dignitaries. The security cluster intensified operations over the weekend to prevent any threats during the two-day gathering. Alfaro Mushwana reports.
Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate says the security cluster was more than ready to deal with any situation that could have unfolded during the G20 summit.
There have not been any disruptions to the actual event. You would have seen security has been heightened, and that is just to ensure that this event takes place in a safe, secure and a peaceful environment.
But the weekend wasn't entirely without tension, as police fired tear gas to disperse Operation Dudula members who were protesting against the G20 summit.
Stay here and not move around.
Operation Dudula leader Zandile Tabula was hit with pepper spray and a police officer sustained injuries during the standoff. The group was demonstrating against the summit, insisting that South Africa should focus on addressing its domestic problems. Despite this, police say there were no disruptions to the international event. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News at the Nasrec Expo Center in Johannesburg.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has lauded the South African government for throwing its weight behind the people of Palestine. The Turkish leader was speaking at the conclusion of the G20 summit yesterday, and he says South Africa demonstrated courage when it took Israel to the International Court of Justice over allegations of committing acts of genocide in Gaza. He says that even when South Africa faced criticism on the global stage, he was pleased that it did not bow to international pressures.
Güney Afrika'nın Filistin davasına yıllardır verdiği ilkeli ve sarsılmaz desteği bu bakımdan çok kıymetli buluyorum.
I greatly value South Africa's principled and unwavering support for the Palestinian cause over the years. Turkey too has fearlessly stood by the Palestinian cause, defending the rights of the oppressed people of Gaza at every platform.
He says a two-state solution remains the only viable path to securing freedom for the Palestinian people.
Tabii bu noktada sağlanan ateşkesin devamını temin ederken kalıcı çözüm için iki devletli formülün hayata geçirilmesi büyük önem arz ediyor.
Of course, while ensuring the continuation of the ceasefire, it is of paramount importance to implement the two-state solution for a lasting settlement.
And staying with conflict matters, the US and Ukraine say any eventual deal to end the war with Russia must fully uphold Kyiv's sovereignty following constructive talks between Washington, Ukrainian and European officials in Geneva. After a day of meetings that kicked off based on a US proposal that was criticized as being in Russia's favor, negotiators have drafted an updated and refined peace talk framework. US President Donald Trump had given Ukraine until next Thursday to approve his plan to end the nearly 4-year conflict, which began after Russia launched a full-scale invasion. But Kyiv was seeking changes to the draft with the 28-point plan requiring the invaded country to cede territory, cut its army and pledge never to join NATO. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says all sides have pledged to keep working on joint proposals in the coming days.
We have made substantial progress. We've really moved forward. So I feel very optimistic optimistic that we're going to get there in a very reasonable period of time very soon. You know, whether it's Thursday, whether it's Friday, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's Monday of the following week, we want it to be soon because people are going to, between today and the time we deal with this, more people are going to die.
Gold is trading at $4,105.70 an ounce. The rand is at 17.24 to the dollar, 22.95 to the pound, 20.06 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $66.01 a barrel.
And in the traffic in Protea Glen, we have got an accident reported on the N12 East. It's right near Abu Bakr Drive. It's causing delays coming out of the R558. And if you're traveling in the east of Joburg, specifically the N12 as well as the R24 West, backed up due to another accident seen right near the Glulis interchange. Delays from Edenville Road.
And in your sport, India will be focusing on collecting as many runs as possible on day 3 of the second test against the Proteas after the South Africans' first innings of 489. Arsenal have moved 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League, while Kaizer Chiefs started their CAF Confed Cup with a loss, and Stellenbosch won their opener. And it's a three-peat of Davis Cups for Italy.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng, along with showers and thunder showers expected. Johannesburg starting at 16 degrees, peaking at 24. Pretoria 17 and 26. Vereeniging a low of 17 degrees as well, and a high of 25. The top story in EWN this hour: the absence of the US at this year's G20 summit did not cast a blight on South Africa, hosting one of the political world's most prestigious gatherings in Africa for the first time.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
On 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Walking the talk, 8 minutes after 6 o'clock, after a weekend of the G20 summit, the first ever hosted on African soil. And as the curtain fell, all and sundry agreed it was a successful summit. Did you take a moment as you listened to the coverage, extensive on 702 and on television and on the newspapers? Did you take a moment to pause and feel a sense of pride? Do you think, well done, South Africa? We'll be catching up with some of the decision makers, some of the people who worked furiously behind the scenes to make it all happen. Our big interview this morning is with the Director General of DIRCO. Zane Dango is going to be talking to us about where things stand now. How do we make sure this declaration isn't just a piece of paper to be filed away in a cabinet, but that it's real in terms of its meaning and is implementable? After the Americans will come the Brits. We'll speak to the British High Commissioner in the first hour of the show, their sense of what has happened and their sense of how they're looking forward to hosting this summit. MK Party recruitment scandal explodes. There are men who are trapped in Russia. They say they were lured into a war zone. They are fingering the name of the MK Party member of Parliament, Duduzile Zuma. We'll speak to one of them trapped inside a war zone.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
On 702.
Let's walk the talk.
9 minutes after 6 o'clock. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm with an entire team of colleagues. We've got the producers, Baphelile and Siamtanda, taking your calls. KG starting the clock. And a very good morning to you, Muteo Khwaripe.
Morning, Bongs.
Just looking back on the weekend that was, your reflections, did you have a moment of pride? Did you swell up and feel, yes, we've done what they thought we couldn't do? How did you read, I suppose, the B20 essentially before, but the G20 now having happened, done and dusted?
The most interesting thing about the B20, firstly, let's start there, was that there were a lot of meeting rooms other than the conference. So a lot of the delegates that were here from different countries, I mean, I was hearing all sorts of accents while I was at the Sandton Convention Center, right? Most of them were actually upstairs in the meeting rooms, cutting deals, and actually had a bit of a look today what the tally was on the deals made, around $500 million throughout the year. Even for Zimbabwe, the neighboring countries, businesses led by women on the continent. So that's been a big plus coming out of the B20. But with the G20 was all about the big occasion. All the leaders being here, we were all ticking off a list as the planes came in. And I think we were great hosts. I think it went well, even with the cloud of the US hanging over our own president and the president of the G20 for 2025, Cyril Ramaphosa. I think it was well handled. But there were no doubts for me whether we could host this because, I mean, we've done far major occasions here in South Africa.
But as somebody said, this was like the World Cup of multilateralism, right?
Yeah.
Amma, what was your sense of it? Were you happy to see all of the leaders? Did you enjoy the coverage on 702? What was your sense of it?
Absolutely enjoyed the coverage on, I think, all media platforms. I think everybody just pulled in their weights to ensure that this was a success because every news channel had the G20 going on. The radios had all, our broadcast team did exceptionally well. No, Kanyam Dambo for EWN was really a bright star.
She's amazing.
She was amazing throughout, actually, even ahead of the G20 itself. I think she's been nicknamed Sherpa there by EWN because of her stunning work.
Sherpa.
Yeah, she is the EWN
I love it.
Sherpa. And then, of course, I enjoyed how disciplined our president was in terms of handling the US saga, and even towards handing over the declaration towards for US to host in the coming year. In saying, listen, I'm not handing over to a junior. I'm not handing over to somebody who's not in the same
at my level.
Right. You will receive it.
Go get it there by Pretoria at Home Affairs.
I admire that completely.
Like anybody else. Somebody made that joke, I think, on X yesterday. Your reflections on the big weekend that was G20. Operation Dudula tried to have a moment in the sunshine, in the spotlight. And I think the sentiment, which was really quite interesting, the sentiment was not today. Not today. I think that was the sense of many people who responded to what they tried to do. Outside of that, really not many hitches, not many glitches. It has gone well. And so I think everybody is having that sort of G20, what would you call it? Afterglow, right? That G20 afterglow. If you've got any reflections on that, we'll certainly be keen to hear those.
You're with Bongani Bingwa.
702 weekday mornings, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, one of the questions I have to ask you today is, what is the best dispute resolution mechanism for families? How do you handle conflict in your family? And what do you think is the ideal way to do so when there are differences between siblings, between cousins, between aunties and uncles, particularly around a major event? I mean, there is the sense that we've just had this big family event as a country, right? But one of the uncles who normally would be expected did not come. The Rahadi from Joburg did not come. The aunt with all the money did not come. How do you handle family conflicts? This is, of course, a question related to something that is happening in the news, and we'll tell you. And it's not about Trump not coming to the G20. It's not to do with that. But it's an extraordinary story, and we will certainly be touching on aspects of it a little later on in the show. But what's the ideal way to handle conflict in families, Amo?
Sit down and talk. I don't see any possible way to handle conflict than to sit down and address the issues, because if you keep on sweeping things under the carpet, they're going to come out anyway, right? And you can't keep on ignoring issues. For me, it's to just sit. I come from a family where we sit down and talk when there's an issue.
Tackle it head on.
We tackle it head on. Whether anybody is going to be uncomfortable in the room, we're going to come out of the room not talking to each other. The problem would have been resolved.
And the bottom line is we are still a family.
And
so
we
we'll
are still a
deal with
family,
it.
and
All
we
right.
still love each other.
Muteo Haripe?
I think Amu's right. The more you talk around issues, the bigger they become over the years. Even issues where your parents tell you this started when I was still a teenager, So I think direct talk, yes, works, but I think there's also room for handling issues without a meeting, because sometimes the meetings can escalate the issue instead of solving it. So if it's a talk that you can do down the road as you walk with each other, do that instead of having everyone involved.
Because sometimes the so-called mediators are themselves conflicted.
Yeah, and they sometimes have their own agendas.
and take
have
sides.
picked a side already.
Yeah. So how do you handle conflict in your family? We'll tell you why we're asking that question coming up.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
But perhaps a moment of reflection. The G20 is done. But we perhaps can take a moment to reflect on the weekend that was. I want you to listen now to somebody who's not a member of the G20. Finland, their president, Alexander Stubb, invited, of course, by President Ramaphosa to be at this G20, spoke at the Leaders' Summit on Saturday. And one of the things that he mentioned was that he really thinks that this meeting wasn't just another high-level meeting, but really reflects a sense of where the world finds itself today. Have a listen to the Finnish President Alexander Stubb.
Thank you very much, Cyril, and thank you for the invitation. You know that Finns are famous for two things. One, they speak very shortly, and two, they love rules. And I hope I will stick to both. It's a great privilege to be here for the first time representing Finland. We've never been at a G20 meeting before, and we really appreciate the invitation. Jonas Störe and I both come from Nordic countries, and we once calculated that the Nordics would be G10. So perhaps I'll speak in that spirit. Cyril, for me, this meeting is very much a symbol of multilateralism. And what you are trying to do here is to bring a group of key countries together that have both demography and economy on their side. And you are doing it at a time when there clearly is a change in the world order, where I believe personally that the nexus of power is moving eastbound and southbound.
That is, of course, the president of Finland speaking and addressing President Ramaphosa directly in the way that a friend might. We can all call him Cyril in our private homes, in our little chat groups, right? But we'd never say it to his face. And clearly there is somebody who has quite a strong relationship with him, which is why he was invited here in the first place. The Finnish president went on into warning about and the need to draw a sharp line between cooperation and raw power. And I think without mentioning the US by name, the finger was definitely pointing.
And now I think all of us pretty much have a choice. And the choice is between multilateralism, which you are representing, and multipolarity. And these two things are very different. For me, multilateralism is about cooperation, it's about rules, it's about norms, and it's about institutions. I like these rules because they are the ones that bring exactly the thing that you have up there on the board: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. My big worry right now is that the world is moving more in a multipolar direction. And multipolarity, though it gives power to nation states as such, is problematic because it's more transactional. It's more about deals, and therefore it's more prone to conflict. There have been many excellent interventions here today about rules on trade, rules on the way in which we engage with each other. My biggest worry right now is that we are not seeing enough multilateralism in three key conflicts that have been raging around the world. One, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. Two, the situation in Gaza. And three, the situation in Sudan. So I hope that we lean towards multilateralism.
That is, of course, the Finnish president there, and they're right next door to Russia. They know all about Russian aggression historically. So that was one of the key moments. There'll be others, and we'll also, of course, play you audio from when the president officially then closed the summit yesterday. How did you reflect on it? With pride? Did you feel that we did well? Job well done? And does it increase the standing and the image of the president in your eyes?
Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
It's 20 after 6. Mateo, you've got a question of your own?
Yeah, I want to know from you and other 702 landers this morning. Are you a curious shopper? So if you see something on the shelf and it's new and you're like, let's find out how that tastes or what this is exactly. Or are you stuck in your ways When you shop, you'd rather have the same list, same retailer, and be on your way.
The aim is not to sweat. The aim is to get out of there as quickly as possible. So I'm not there to look. No,
I think I'm curious. I mean, there are some hits and some misses, but when you hit something new, I think it becomes your own little secret. I like that.
What I could say, because I'm the one who does the household shopping in my home, and I'm not into getting it all delivered. I mean, sometimes yes, when it's 1 or 2 items, I will notice something, maybe on 2 or 3 occasions, and maybe on the 4th, I might go, "Ooh, I've been curious about that thing," and try it. But it won't be on the first time.
Takes
seeing
some
it.
convincing.
Nah.
Amo?
I make use of the people who would be around the malls promoting a new product.
Okay.
So I'll go over and taste. I'll go over and ask. I make the time.
And if it passes that test, then...
And if it passes the test, then I'm for it.
I taste the things I already like. And I pretend, "Ooh, let me taste."
Wow.
702.
Weather.
Let's talk to you about what conditions you can expect. Lovely rain over the weekend, by the way. A cloudy day in store for Gauteng, so some more showers expected today. Temperatures maxing at 24 degrees in Johannesburg. Your high in the capital is 26, that's Pretoria. Vereeniging, 25. Cape Town fine, maxing at 28. Gqeberha and East London, 23. Durban, 22.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN traffic is brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now, and you could save on your car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. Amo?
Well, Bongs, we've got an accident reported on the N12 East. It's in the Protea Glen area. It's right near Abu Bakr Drive. It's causing delays from the R558. Please be on the lookout there. About a 20-minute hold up. And if you are traveling on the N1 north out of Neturena, do expect traffic volumes between the N12 exit and the Deep Kloof interchange. And there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N3 north already between the Earlands interchange and the Kilwini's turn off. Peak time delays here. I'll have more updates coming up. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. The Outsurance pointsmen know that every car on the road carries a story. There's a car on the way to the hospital, carrying an elderly couple, playfully bantering about who their first grandchild will look like.
Not your business.
The Outsurance pointsmen know it's not just a car in traffic. It's bringing 2 generations together. Every story is different and every story matters. That's why the Outsurance pointsmen have been doing what they do since 2005 in proud partnership with 702. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. 702.
Add your voice.
Have your say.
Let's walk the talk.
Top of the morning, Mr. Bingwa and 702 lenders. I reckon a fair assessment and appraisal of a president is that he'll go down as a global success, but not so much, as they say in the streets, a local Lord and Savior, right? But great coverage from my favorite radio station, 702. Thanks for a great show. Tsepo in Boksburg.
Tsepo in Boksburg, I'll agree, at least on one point. There was great coverage over the weekend from 702. I think all the colleagues who were at Nasrec, from the EWN team right down to the regular hosts, Clement Manyatela, John Perlman, Stephen Curtis, did a sterling job to give you a sense of being in the room. The descriptions of the huddles in the different corners in the plenary, the conversations, the leaders that were coming in and that were leaving, who was speaking to whom, how, what body language they were displaying, all of that painted in very, very vivid imagery, theater of the mind stuff. It was really, really fantastic.
Start your day with Bongani Bingwa
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
Right, things you need to know at this hour. 2 suspects, a Hawks officer and a Tembisa hospital, are due to appear in the Pretoria Magistrates Court today. The charges are serious. They're corruption charges. So according to the Hawks, the case began when this Hawks sergeant allegedly approached one of the investigators, claiming that a Tembisa hospital official wanted help to avoid prosecution in an ongoing investigation. The pair later met the investigator and handed over 100,000 Rand in cash as a would-be bribe, but it was a sting operation authorized by the Director of Public Prosecutions, and it led to the arrest of both that sergeant, who I imagine was the go-between, and the Tembisa Hospital official. The international drama of the G20, of course, we know the US was not here. Minister Lamola, the Minister of International Relations, confirming South Africa will be handing over the G20 presidency to the US. The official transfer will take place quietly at the DIRCO offices. The exact date still to be announced. Now, I ask you, what's the best way to handle family conflict? Well, a dramatic feud is erupting in the Zuma household. The former president, Jacob Zuma's daughter, Nkosazana Bongani Zuma Mncube, has laid a criminal complaint against her sister, Duduzile Zuma Sambula, over the ordeal of those 17 men allegedly lured to Russia. And now it appears these men are being sent to the front lines. Of course, South African law strictly prohibits any mercenary activities. You can't go and fight in foreign wars without the approval or authorization of the South African government. It is also a crime to recruit, train, support, or fund such activities. So what these men thought they were going to do there is not quite clear. We'll be speaking to one of them, by the way, who has agreed to speak to us a little after 7 o'clock. It should make for really interesting listening. Adam Gilchrist has a story about another tragedy, this time in Vietnam. Relentless rains unleashing devastation, almost 100 people dead, a dozen still reported missing. And it was on this day in 1979, an unlikely pair, Barbara Streisand and Donna Summer, they hit #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 with their duet, No More Tears. Enough is enough.
702.
The newspapers.
I was expecting it. I was ready to go, enough is enough. Swissa's like, who? Donna who?
I know Donna Summer. What do you mean?
Oh, okay. Good. I'm very impressed. What's in the papers?
Listen, I was not part of the G20. I was not at Nasrec, but there's one person who kept us abreast blow by blow on his social media, and that's the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Right.
If you followed him, his social media had everything that you needed to know about his movements and what he's doing. And one of those stories today on Reuters is him and the Canadian Prime Minister and on the sidelines of the G20. Obviously, G20 is like, they all get gathered together and they speak about these declarations. But on the sidelines, they also have conversations about trade with other countries. So it's an opportunity for them to also have one-on-ones. So yeah, one of the interesting stories that for me that caught my attention was just Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And like I said, Reuters is having a picture of him and the Canadian leader on the sidelines where they spoke about other things.
I loved his interactions, particularly with the Indian community here in South Africa.
And the reception
some of the videos,
that he got.
Yeah, that was quite warm. That was quite heartwarming. The front page of the Business Day, South Africa clinching a surprise G20 consensus deal. Sowetan with a grim story, teen takes own life after abuse, and the Citizen, don't tell us what to do, US. Those are the newspapers.
EWN Business.
Mateo, you want to know, are we curious shoppers ready to try out new things? Curious about new products we see on the shelves? Or do you buy what you've always bought at the same retailer, at the same price, hopefully? Although that never quite works out like that.
No.
What prompts the question?
Bongani, hundreds of shoppers lined up to sample the Walmart shopping experience this weekend, but they were not in a town in the US. They were in Roodepoort at the Clearwater shopping mall. The American retail giant opened its first of 2 stores in South Africa, with another expected to open its stores at Fourways Mall before the end of the year. Walmart will take on the dominant names in the South African retail sector. The US retail giant intends to challenge the ShopRite group not only in-store, but also in the rapidly expanding quick commerce space of deliveries. Walmart's new store also offers a 60-minute express online delivery for customers within a 5-kilometer store radius. Now, the new store offers a wide range of goods, including fresh food, appliances, toys, and electronics. Walmart, which owns Game and Macro's parent company, Massmart, made it clear it's targeting the same convenience-driven middle to high income shoppers that have fueled the Checkers rise and 60/60 as well. So that challenge will go on to the likes of Pick and Pay and Woolies, who play in the same retail segment.
Look, I'm curious about Walmart just because it's new. I'm not sure if I'm going to go all the way to Clearwater though. So I'll wait for the one in Fourways, hey? I think that's what I'll do. Where's the rand?
17 Rand 37 against the US dollar, starting off the week on a positive note at exactly 20 Rand against the euro and 22 Rand 74 cents against the British pound. Price of gold slightly weaker at $4,056 an ounce, or platinum is at $1,536. Brent crude at $62.63 a barrel. More business after 7.
Straight to the news desk we go. Good morning again, Sfiso Zulu.
Thanks, Bongani. Good morning. With the G20 Leaders Summit now done and dusted in Johannesburg, police say security measures will remain in place to ensure the smooth departure of heads of state and international dignitaries. The security cluster intensified operations over the weekend to prevent any threats during the two-day gathering. Alfara Mushwana takes a look.
Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate says the security cluster was more than ready to deal with any situation that could have unfolded during the G20 summit.
There have not been any disruptions to the actual event. You would have seen security has been heightened, and that is just to ensure that this event takes place in a safe, secure, and a peaceful environment.
But the weekend wasn't entirely without tension, as police fired tear gas to disperse Operation Dudula members who were protesting against the G20 summit.
Stay here and not move around.
Operation Dudula leader Zandile Tabula was hit with pepper spray, and a police officer sustained injuries during the standoff. The group was demonstrating against the summit, insisting that South Africa should focus on addressing its domestic problems. Despite this, police say there were no disruptions to the international event. Alfa Ramshwana, Eyewitness News at the Nasrec Expo Center in Johannesburg.
And despite some skepticism that South Africa would find sufficient consensus, a 30-page leaders' declaration was finalized on day one of the meeting. Speaking on the sidelines of the gathering yesterday, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola hailed the global endorsement as a renewed commitment to multilateral cooperation.
The Global South is providing leadership that has never been seen before, that these institutions that have been created after the Second World War have served us well. We need to maintain them, but obviously there is a need for reform of some of them, like the United Nations Security Council and other platforms. There is a need for reform to ensure that there is representativity of the Global South.
Alleged Underworld gang boss Nafis Modak will continue with his cross-examination in the Western Cape High Court today. Last week, Modak turned his back on co-accused Zane Killian, claiming he was part of a conspiracy against him involving his alleged Underworld rivals, the now deceased Mark Liffman and Andre Nodier. Killian previously told the Western Cape High Court Modak instructed him to track the whereabouts of prominent attorney William Booth before an attempt on the lawyer's life 5 years ago. Carlo Peterson reports.
Last week, Nafis Modak accused Zane Killian of lying under oath, saying he never instructed Killian to ping attorney William Booth. Evidence shows Killian pinged Booth several times before the attorney survived a shooting at his Eaglevale home in April 2020. State Prosecutor Greg Wolmerans questioned Modak about why Killian would lie about pinging Booth on Modak's instruction. Modak told the court Killian was doing the same investigative work for his alleged Underworld rivals, the now deceased Mark Liffman and Andre Nodier. He insists the charges he faces are part of a conspiracy by his alleged Underworld rivals and corrupt cops. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And multimedia messaging app Snapchat has started asking teenage Australians to verify their ages just weeks before Canberra enforces sweeping laws banning under 16s from social media. From the 10th of December, Australia will force social media platforms including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok to remove users under the age of 16 or face hefty fines, and users will be able to do so using the Australian bank account, government-issued identification, or by taking a photo of their face, which a third party will then use to provide an estimated age range. The Snapchat's platform, like other social media platforms, has advised teen users to download their data as soon as possible, as it may be tricky to do so once the ban starts. A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with showers expected. The temperatures are at lows of 16 and 18 degrees, peaking at highs between 24 and 26.
And in the traffic, we've got an accident in Protea Glen on the N12 East near Abu Bakr Drive. Delays from the R558, more than a 15-minute hold up there. While travelling on the N3 North, queuing traffic between the Yellands interchange and the Kilulis interchange.
The top story this hour, police say security measures will remain in place to ensure the smooth departure of heads of state and international dignitaries after the G20 summit.
Part of the 702 family.
Hi 702 lenders, my name is Karabo Siputi from Johannesburg. I'm a regular 702 listener. I find it very informative, from breaking news to current news, travel, entertainment. I'm always going to listen to 702 for as long as I'm here. And yeah, keep up the good work and keep informing us and empowering us with all the knowledge.
Welcome to our 702 family. Let's walk the talk.
Enjoy a summer of extras with free gifts from Vodacom on all summer deals. Like the Huawei Pura 80 Pro for just $889 over 36 months on a 3 gig red core plan. And get the Huawei Watch Fit 4 worth $2,999 on us. Plus, enjoy sizzling hot extras with 5 gigs YouTube data and 2 months free YouTube Premium. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, unfair blacklisting, or an uncontested divorce, Clientele Legal offers professional legal services to all South Africans. Our plans are affordable, and you receive up to 745,000 Rand worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our nationwide legal teams are standing by to support you 24 hours a day. Plus, all plans include a 5,000 Rand bail benefit. Join today. SMS LEGAL to 48721. That's legal to 48721. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Nothing beats the summer holidays, lazy pool days, ocean waves, festivals, food and family fun. That special time is almost here, and with Fly Safair's affordable, flexible fares, you can zoom off to SA's hottest spots. Sunshine guaranteed, worries not included. For big holiday savings, use our low fare finder to hunt down the best flight prices in just seconds. Don't be a bummer. Fly into summer. Book now at flysafair.co.za. Fly Safair, for the love of flying.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
On the next Money Show, we'll hear from the chief executives of African Bank, Netcare and BPC as they unpack their latest company results. Then we turn to the art world with Marlies van Sail, CEO of Aspire Art. Plus, we'll bring you expert analysis of all of the top business news of the day.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show, Stephen Curtis, is brought to you by Absa CIB. Invested in your story and inviting you to write it with them. Absa is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. 702.
WhatsApp Bongani on 072
702 1702.
Good morning, 702. Regarding how we solve issues in the family, my mom has taught us that we need to eat together before we resolve the issues, because food brings people together. So she would deliberately make each of us, because my siblings and I have all moved out of home, she would deliberately make each of us bring something. And as we indulge, she'll start a light conversation about something else, and then we all engage about that. And then by the time we get to the main subject, if anyone came burning, the fire would have died down a little bit, and then we talk about the issue. So yeah, that's how I believe issues should be resolved to this day. Let's eat than talk.
Morning, Bongani, the team. I'll agree with sitting down and talking. But what my grandmother has taught me is that, Andile, focus on you and your family, meaning you, your wife, your kids, and that's it. And I've taken that, and so far I'm winning. It's only me, my wife, and the kids, the family, all that's under your roof. That is me. Andile and Breakendowns. Thank you.
Andy and Breckendowns essentially saying make the circle smaller. We're asking you, what's the best way to resolve disputes, conflicts within families? It comes, of course, in the wake of, you might call it a feud, a family feud of sorts. One of Jacob Zuma's daughters, Bongani Zuma Ncube, laying a criminal complaint against her sister, Duduzile Zuma Sambudla, over the ordeal of 17 South Africans who now say they were lured to Russia and they're being forced to fight in that war in Ukraine. Quite what they thought they were going to do there is not very clear at this stage.
EWN Sport.
Well. I mean, I just love how sport can prove you so wrong and humble you in many respects. What am I talking about? Cindy Paluta has been away for a couple of days. Our fave, Anthony Teixeira, said the other day, not for him, Test cricket. And what have we seen? 2 matches, I almost said on the go. One was concluded within a couple of days. Quite extraordinary, that Ashes first test. But also, Anthony Teixeira, the Proteas versus India, that's also turning out to be quite a humdinger.
Yeah. Good morning, Bongani.
Good morning. Do you still feel the same way about Test cricket?
I do still feel the same way because I look at the Ashes. It was done within 2 days. That's basically an ODI and another ODI.
No.
It wasn't. No. It was 90 overs a day. That's less than an ODI.
Blame Mitchell Starc. But was a riveting Test match.
This one on the go is even more fascinating because India needs to be going at like 4 or 5 runs to the over if they are to get anywhere near that total over the Proteas.
And they're trying to race ahead. And in a sense, this particular one, maybe I'll concede this. Maybe that Ashes first test, for all its drama, right? If you're Australian, you'll be happy, of course. But in a sense, this one on the go now between the Proteas men and India is exactly what Test cricket is all about. That ebb and flow, those highs and lows. I mean, on day one, at the end of day one, we thought the Proteas could be in a spot of bother.
Yeah.
And now look.
Yeah. I will concede to that. This is an exciting test
you
match.
Concede, I concede. Oh, everybody concedes.
Yeah.
So we don't need a family dispute mechanism.
This is just resolve it by conceding. But yeah, we will start with the Proteas. They started day 3 of the second test against India bowling, and they've seen a breakthrough. The South Africans managing to get the wicket of KL Rahul through Keshav Maharaj. Since then, India are 72 for the loss of 1. They're going at a run rate of 2.93 runs to the over, trying to get near that 489 that the Proteas scored in their first innings.
Is going to be extremely difficult. Now, Anthony, let's talk football.
What
happened in football yesterday?
Exciting times if you're an Arsenal supporter, as they 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League after thumping Spurs 4-1 in the North London derby. Eze scoring a spectacular first hat-trick for the Gunners, and Mikel Arteta sharing that the forward even came back early from international duty.
And he wanted to improve, and he wanted to do extra practice. And he was asking me questions about this and that. And when a player has such a talent and his desire is at that level, then these things happen. And he fully deserved that. I'm so happy for him because since the day that he came, he brought something else to the team. Sets and joy, sets an aura that this team needed.
Meanwhile, Aston Villa moved into the top 4 after a comeback 2-1 win over Leeds. Back home in the Betway Premiership, goalless between Richards Bay and Durban City, and TS Galaxy beat Golden Arrows 2-1. In the CAF Confederation Cup, Kaizer Chiefs started their group stage with a 2-1 loss in Egypt to Al Mercy, while we had Stellenbosch winning 1-0 at home to Otago, while in rugby, Scotland were free-flowing in a 56-0 win over Tonga, England beating Argentina 27-23. Saturday evening, the Springboks made it 4 wins from 4 on the end-of-year tour after seeing off Ireland 24-13. In tennis, despite not having their top 2 seeds, Yannick Sinner and Lorenzo Musetti, Italy were able to defend their Davis Cup winning it for a third successive time. Matteo Berrettini, who had started that final with a straight set victory in his singles match, reflected on the win over Spain.
The weapon that we have, we're together, like we play together. It doesn't matter who's playing. We're playing in six actually with the captain. So it was a team effort, even though we played just 2 singles, and that's why it feels special.
And in Formula One, both McLarens were disqualified from the Las Vegas Grand Prix after both cars were found to not comply with the technical regulations from post-race inspections, and they found their rearmost skidway to be below the minimum 9mm thickness. Race winner Max Verstappen keeping his title hopes alive and just 24 points behind Lando Norris, who can secure his maiden title next weekend if he finishes 8th or higher in Qatar. Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
Bring your daydreams to life with Norwegian Cruise Line, sailing to over 400 exciting destinations around the world on 21 spectacular ships. Explore iconic landmarks in Europe, hop islands in the Caribbean, and much more. When it comes to dream holidays, think NCL. For the best cruise deals, visit ncl.com or contact your travel agent. Restrictions apply.
You are not dreaming. You are repeating. Insurance, pineapple. Insurance, pineapple. Insurance, pineapple. Insurance, pineapple. Pineapple FSP 48650 is underwritten by Omart Insure Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP.
Who says everyday driving can't be très chic? Rent premium with Sani Sixt now. Own the stylish Citroen C3 later. Yes, that's 3 cars, 3 months, 3 chances to say ooh la la. Just book directly on sani.co.za. Call us or rent at any branch between 1 November and 31 January, and you're automatically entered into the draw. Bon voyage with Sani Sixt and win. T's and C's apply.
702 was in conversation with Momentum on The Money Show with Stephen Grootes, discussing the power of focus and the science of success.
I think it's a test that most people would benefit from because, when I did the test, I kind of knew how, my relationship with money, but also it clearly stated that I wasn't scared of taking risks and making moves in business. But at the same time, I also had a real fear of kind of, I guess, running out of money or not being able to support my family. And that in the back of my head, whenever I do something, I guess the older you get, the less you're inclined to take risks. And I guess at the end of the day, what I learned from the test is, yes, I am a risk taker, but I'm also conservative and it's more calculated risks than just wild risks.
Visit momentum.co.za for more info. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
The Brainy Kids of the Whiz Quiz
on 702.
Good morning, Uncle Bongani. My name is Ryan. I'm 11 years old. I go to TOS college. When I grow up, I want to be a paramedic. I can't wait to play the Whiz Quiz with you today.
Oh, I wonder what you're aiming for. 10 out of 10? Let's hope.
702.
Coming up at 7:15, the big interview.
EWN Traffic.
Right, the CWN Traffic brought to you by South African Airways. SAA now operates 2 flights a day to Gaborone with morning and afternoon departures. Book now at flysaa.com. There's a crash in Protea Glen. Amo, what's going on?
It's really a major one, Bongani. It's on the N12 East near Abu Bakr Drive. Delays from the R558, more than a 15-minute hold-up here. Please be on the lookout there and drive with care. If you are traveling on the N1 north towards the Deep Cliff interchange, do expect delays coming out of the N12 exit, about a 10-minute hold-up there, and that's due to peak time delays. There's also peak time pressure reported on the N3 north. This is between the Elands interchange and the Kilulis interchange. Please be on the lookout and do expect about a 30-minute hold up between those 2 points at this moment. I'll have more updates for you. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Experience Johannesburg to Gaborone with South African Airways, where comfort meets convenience. Enjoy premium service, flexibility, flexible morning and afternoon departures, and the warm hospitality SAA is known for. For a limited time, return fares start from just 2,762 Rand all inclusive. Book by 4 December at flysaa.com. South African Airways, bringing you closer. T's and C's apply.
Hi, this is Teko Modise, Hollywood Bet's brand ambassador. Be a winner who knows when it's time for a timeout and play responsibly. If you or someone you know needs help, call the South African Responsible Gambling Toll-Free Counseling Line on 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No person under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop.
Business Outsurance are experts in business insurance for pharmacies, convenience stores, beauty salons, and more. Corne?
Business Outsurance is definitely the best insurance for my business. Bowled out every other insurance house. Honestly, looking at what you need, my installment came down within a day. Definitely the most professional.
Switch to Business Outsurance and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. Visit outsurance.co.za. Switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Do you suffer from heartburn and hyperacidity? To relieve heartburn for the whole day and night with one tablet, a potent once-a-day treatment which was previously prescription only is now available over the counter. Ask your pharmacist for an over-the-counter, long-lasting heartburn treatment. Brought to you by Sandoz.
Coming up in the next hour, What's the Question? It's brought to you by Outsurance. 3,000 Rand in cash is up for grabs. You send us an answer based on something you heard in the show, and for that you'll win 1,000 Rand. WhatsApp us your name and the answer to 072 702 1702. Later, someone else will ask a question to win 2,000 Rand. SMS out to 45142. SMS out to 45142 now, and you could save on your car insurance.
Who is the whizziest of them all?
It's the Whiz Quiz on 702.
Let's play the Whiz Quiz. Today it's 11-year-old Ryan's turn. And Ryan wants to be a paramedic a little later on in life. Ryan, what's the total score you are going for this morning?
10,000 Rand.
10,000 Rand. Okay. Deal or no deal, as they say. Ryan, take a deep breath, my friend, and here we go. KG, start the clock. What is the name of SpongeBob's pet snail? Is it Gary or is it Patrick?
Gary.
Correct. How many right angles does a square have?
4.
Correct. In cartoons, the character Casper is a friendly what?
A friendly cat.
Friendly ghost. True or false? Diamonds are a form of carbon.
True.
Correct. On which continent did World War I begin in 1914? Was it in Europe or was it in Asia?
Asia.
It was in Europe. In which sport does the winning team get the Webb Ellis Trophy? Is it soccer or is it rugby?
Rugby.
Correct. In which province is the city East London?
Western Cape.
It's in the Eastern Cape. What name is given to animals that only eat plants and vegetables? And I'm afraid we've run out of time. Herbivores, of course, would have been the answer we were looking for. Ryan, not a bad round. Not quite 10,000 Rand is what you walk away with. You win 400 Rand.
The Brainy Kids of the Whiz Quiz
On 702.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.
All right, on to this now. As the curtain came down following the first G20 summit ever hosted on African soil, the consensus is that it was a tremendous success. South Africa, of course, able to put forward its priorities, placing African concerns at the center of discussions. The baton will now move on to the US for 2026, and the year after that, it will be the turn of the United Kingdom. And I'm pleased to tell you that the British High Commissioner to the Republic of South Africa, Anthony Phillipson, now joins us on the line. A very good morning to you, and thank you for your time this morning.
Well, good morning to you, Bongani. Thank you very much for having me on. Nice to talk to you.
What's your assessment of this G20?
So I think, as a number of leaders said during the summit, including my own, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, and it was great to have him here. This really was a genuinely historic occasion, the first time the G20 summit has been hosted on African soil. But the other thing that I think we were always keen to stress is that the summit was just a culminating moment in over 130 meetings here in South Africa through 2025. We had a number of visitors from London, I think about 14 ministerial level visits, really engaging with the agenda, and we give huge credit to South Africa for their chairing of the process and bringing it all together in a successful conclusion over the weekend.
How sorely was the US missed?
So the US engaged in some of the G20 through the year. Obviously, they weren't at the summit. That's their decision to make, of course. But the leaders who did gather, they agreed the declaration that I'm sure you've seen. And I think that symbolizes the G20 coming together, addressing the big global issues of the day, whether climate or health, inequality, and driving trade liberalization to create jobs and economic prosperity. And now, as you say, it'll move on to the US as the G20 moves back to the global north, as they say, after a succession of global south presidencies. So I think it was a very successful and significant occasion.
Look, without forcing you to wade into the politics of it all, and I understand your limitations, but I ask the question simply because there is a view that because the Americans are so disproportionately powerful, they typically have carried a disproportionate load from multilateral decisions. And so, yes, we have a declaration, but can it have an implementable meaning without them?
So, I mean, something I said when a few people asked me about this on Saturday when we were all at Nasrec during the summit is, I think, if I can put it this way, the declaration is a political document. Where it gets implemented is going to be in places like the IMF, the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, the OECD, elsewhere. Obviously, the US is a key player in those fora, but so are countries like my own and the other members of the G7, and of course, countries like South Africa. So I think we should focus on where we now make those commitments a reality in order to drive the improvements on the ground for people across the world in areas of health, climate, jobs, growth, etc.
But we've, of course, seen commitments and promises made before, and you might say an uneven compliance with those in the past. Do you have confidence that some of the key agreements here and some of the reports can really be turned into actionable and implementable plans?
I think that is a very legitimate challenge. Again, I think it is fair, those who have observed that over previous maybe decades, the commitments that have been made on things like climate finance or to easing issues of sort of debt burdens in the developing world have not been followed through. But let's accept the challenge and say that as we work through towards, as you said at the beginning of the program, or this segment, our presidency of the G7 and G20, in 2027, that we do live up to our commitments. As I said, South Africa, I think one of the key themes through the year was that as they came at the end of this run of presidencies, starting with Indonesia, India, Brazil, and South Africa, they wanted to use it as an opportunity to review what had been done with G20 commitments to the developing world, to Africa. And I think we should, as I say, take on that challenge and let's do what we need to do as we go forward.
In a sense, the G20 is meant to be, shall we say, a leaner, meaner version of much larger multilateral fora, but there are still different ideas about how to move the world forward, whether we're talking about climate finance or debt relief. How do you get agreement on what is mostly generalities, if you will, rather than specifics?
So, as you say, I mean, the G20 is as it's called, the group of 20, the leading 20 leading economies in the world. It was originally a finance focused construct until the global financial crisis in 2008-2009, when it evolved into the structure we now see with the Sherpa track and culminating in the Leaders Summit. But I think the key thing is, as I say, the essence of multilateralism is how do you take the diversity of the nations around the world, the voices that are entitled to have a say in what happens around the world, and use those structures to actually come up with meaningful agreements that actually have real impact on the ground. We talk in a lot of places about the need for global action to address global challenges, and the ones that we've touched on. The key question is, what are we actually going to do to turn those words, turn those political commitments into actions and actually benefit the people of the world, not just in the developing world, but all around the world. As we've seen, sadly, over recent years with the pandemic, as we've seen with climate change, no country can deal with these issues on their own, and these challenges know no borders. So we have to have collective action, and I think the G20 is one particular place where those voices and conversations come together. But it's not the only, and as we've said, it's not actually where the real actions get implemented and made manifest.
Indeed, we're all in it together. Appreciate your time. Anthony Phillipson is the British High Commissioner to South Africa.
Thank you.
702.
Coming up, the big interview.
It was a successful summit, as I say, but perhaps one of the people to be credited with a lot of that behind-the-scenes work and success is, of course, the G20 Sherpa, and that's the Director General of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. Zain Dengo speaks to us next.
This is EWN.
There's panic in KZN as emergency teams search for missing people in floods. And after a successful G20 summit, South African officials are not worried about their presence in the US as it takes over next year. Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. At least 3 people have been swept away by floods in KwaZulu-Natal as heavy rains hit the province. A search and rescue process is underway in New Hanover, where houses have been submerged in water and critical infrastructure damaged. The South African Weather Service has issued a warning of more downpours. Nhlanhla Mabaso has more from KZN.
The recent severe weather has brought panic in New Hanover as some people have had to evacuate their homes due to flooding. KZN Cooperative Governance spokesperson Senzelwe Mzila says a search and rescue mission is underway.
Disaster management teams are working around the clock to locate the missing. Disaster management teams are working across the clock to respond to several incidents that have occurred across the broader Umgungundlovu district as a result of the inclement weather conditions.
Residents have been warned to stay vigilant as the weather warning remains in place. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, an 80% chance of rain is expected to cause localized flooding in Gauteng. Motorists are being urged to exercise caution while driving on the slippery roads. Forecaster Litlhogonolo Tobela.
A possibility of damaging winds as well as a possibility of hail and excessive lightning expected over the northwest, Free State, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, as well as parts of Limpopo into the central and the western parts of KwaZulu-Natal.
He says the rains are expected to continue with a 60% chance tomorrow.
If you'll be in Gauteng, can expect a 60% chance of showers and thunder showers, which stretches to Mpumalanga. Otherwise, a 30% chance of showers and thunder showers is expected mainly over the eastern provinces. With these warnings, we're still expecting severe thunderstorms for tomorrow, which may result in heavy downpours that lead to localized flooding, especially in areas over the central and the southern parts of Gauteng into the high veld of Mpumalanga.
Minister in the presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni insists there is no tension between South Africa and the US as Washington gears up to take over the G20 presidency next year. President Cyril Ramaphosa closed the Leaders Summit yesterday, hosted in Johannesburg after a US boycott. Ntshavheni says cabinet ministers are not concerned about having their visas revoked as they prepare to travel to the US for next year's summit. Babalo Ndenza reports.
Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni says the declaration at the summit is not just about South Africa and involves several other countries, including the European Union and African Union. She says South Africa will remain part of discussions, even though the US chose to stay away from the summit. But the minister in the presidency says this does not mean there's tensions between the two nations.
There are no tensions between us and the US. The declaration that has been adopted is the declaration of the G20 leaders. It's not a declaration of one country over the other. It's a declaration of the G20 leaders. It has been accepted.
Ntshavheni says the United Kingdom will take over after the US and South Africa's voice will still be heard.
We'll remain part of the Troika of the G20 and we'll make sure that the South African voice will be there. If they don't want us to participate, they'll have to tell the 19 other members of the G20.
Ntshavheni says they are also not bothered that the US government might turn its sights on other members of cabinet after revoking former International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor's visa without offering any explanation. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Nasrec.
And as President Ramaphosa was applauded by his counterparts for a job well done, Brazilian leader Lula da Silva made light of the US's no-show. US President Donald Trump snubbed the G20 Leaders Summit held on African soil for the first time, although no US leader was present to officially receive the presidency from South Africa. A diplomatic handover is expected to take place this week. Lindsay Dentlinger takes a look.
With the leaders' declaration adopted at the start of proceedings on Saturday rather than at the end of the 2 days, as is customary, President Cyril Ramaphosa wrapped up the meeting with brief closing remarks before dropping the gavel.
This gavel of this G20 summit formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States, where we shall see each other again next year.
With cameras still rolling and the mic still live, a delegate whose face was not shown could be heard asking Ramaphosa about the US's absence.
Where is the United States? They're not here.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva, who was sitting next to Ramaphosa and who was first to congratulate him, then playfully picked up the gavel and offered to take it to the US. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Nasrec.
And the US and Ukraine say any eventual deal to end the war with Russia must fully uphold Kyiv's sovereignty following constructive talks between Washington, Ukrainian and European officials in Geneva. After a day of meetings that kicked off based on a US proposal that was criticized as being in Russia's favor, negotiators have drafted an updated and refined peace framework. US President Donald Trump had given Ukraine until next Thursday to approve his plan to end the nearly 4-year conflict, which began after Russia launched a full-scale invasion. But Kyiv was seeking changes to the draft with the 28-point plan requiring the invaded country to cede territory, cut its army and pledge never to join NATO. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says all sides have pledged to keep working on joint proposals in the coming days.
We have made substantial progress. We've really moved forward. So I feel very optimistic that we're going to get there in a very reasonable period of time very soon. You know, whether it's Thursday, whether it's Friday, whether it's Wednesday, whether it's Monday of the following week, we want it to be soon because people are going to, between today and the time we deal with this, more people are going to die.
Gold is trading at $4,105.70 an ounce. The rand is at 17.24 to the dollar, 22.95 to the pound, 20.06 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $66.01 a barrel.
And in the traffic in Kempton Park, we've got an accident. It happened at the OR Tambo interchange. It's right on the Pretoria Road within the OR Tambo precinct. So please be on the lookout there and drive with care while traveling on the N3 north bumper to bumper traffic between the Elands interchange and the Kilulis interchange. While in Waterfall, we've got a major accident scene reported on Allendale Road. This one is just as you head towards the N1 exit. It's causing heavy traffic volumes. Please be on the lookout.
And in your sport, Proteas bowlers with their tails up in India's first innings on day 3 of the second test. Arsenal won the North London derby to move 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League. And Argentina coach Felipe Consompomi accuses Tom Curry of bullying and slapping his chest after English loss.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng, along with showers and thunder showers expected. Johannesburg is at a low of 16 degrees, peaking at 24. Pretoria, 17 and 26. Vereeniging, a low of 17 degrees as well, at a high of 25. The top story in EWN this hour. At least 3 people have been swept away by floods in KwaZulu-Natal as heavy rains continue to hit the province.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
9 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're listening to 702 Breakfast. It's a brand new week. It's the start of a brand new week. But of course, it is the morning after the night before, is it not? The curtain has come down on what has been a largely successful G20 summit. But I wonder if we are to make anything out of the international coverage of the summit. I had a glance at some of the major news networks over the weekend, and there wasn't substantial coverage of what was happening in Johannesburg. Maybe that is indicative of the Americans and their view of what was unfolding in Johannesburg. But that remains to be seen, of course, in terms of the finer detail. If you've just joined us, welcome to the show. Up next are the Americans, and thereafter will be the Brits in 2027. How do you feel about the summit and the weekend that was? And how has it changed your view of particularly the South African government, the government of national unity, as they would call themselves, the coalition that is running the country at the moment? All hands on deck. We saw various ministers welcoming dignitaries from different parts of the world. Some of them are ANC ministers, some of them were DA ministers, all singing from the same hymn sheet. Was it Julius Malema who also tweeted a positive sentiment about the president and his leadership style? Is this a moment to be celebrated? Or do you take any stock out of the fact that many of the international news channels didn't really cover it so much? What are your thoughts?
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Things you need to know at this hour. The spotlight today will intensify as the inquiry into Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office resume. You remember, of course, he was the director, or he is the director of public prosecutions in Johannesburg, and is facing explosive allegations of steering prosecutorial decisions for political gain. Claims that have shaken confidence for some in the justice system. I asked earlier, how do you resolve family disputes or conflicts in your family? Because, my goodness me, what do you make of the fact that two of Jacob Zuma's daughters appear to be at loggerheads? Nkosazana Bongani Zuma Mncube has laid a criminal complaint against her sister, Duduzile Zuma Sambula, over the ordeal of 17 South Africans who now say they were lured to Russia, pushed into the war in Ukraine without their consent. What isn't yet clear is what these men thought they were going to do in Ukraine. They claim they were lured on the pretext of being trained as security guards, because, as you will know, South African law prohibits quite strictly any mercenary activities or unauthorized participation in foreign armed conflicts. We've got a piece of legislation called the Prohibition of Mercenary Activities and Regulation of Certain Activities in Countries of Armed Conflict Act 2006. Not only may you not participate, you may not recruit, you may not train, you may not fund, you may not do anything that promotes this kind of activities. And if you're a violator, there are severe penalties, including a fine of up to R1 million or imprisonment of up to 10 years or both. So, how do you deal with that one, I wonder? And of course, notwithstanding the fact that Duduzile Zuma is a member of parliament. And so if that was to be something that should be found guilty of, it would indeed be a serious charge. Now, 4 U.S. officials have indicated that the United States is set to begin a new phase of operations concerning Venezuela in the coming days. And what that might mean is the Trump administration intensifying pressure for regime change for Nicolas Maduro to leave as president of Venezuela. And it was on this day, the 24th of November 1991, the world lost one of its brightest stars. Freddie Mercury, the electrifying frontman of Queen, passed away at the age of 45 due to AIDS-related complications. He really was one of the most unforgettable performers on stage, unequaled. And that voice, the operatic storm of Bohemian Rhapsody, the soul-stirring Somebody to Love, the triumphant We Are the Champions. They don't make them quite the same, do they?
Those doesn't really matter to me. Mama just killed a man.
702. Up next.
The Big Interview.
EWN Traffic.
14 minutes after 7 o'clock, this EWN Traffic brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now. You could save on your car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 Rand. There are delays in the Waterfall area. Amo, what's going on?
Yes, Bongani, a major accident scene reported on Islandale Road. It's right near the N1 exit. It's causing heavy traffic volumes towards Dane Road. So please be on the lookout there and try to avoid. If you want to try and navigate your way around this scene, you can try to use Modderfontein Road as well as the New Road exit. While traveling on the N1 South in the Midrand area, delays between the Brakfontein interchange and Olifantsfontein Road. Peak time pressure there. There's also peak time delays reported on the N3 North between the Earlands interchange and the Gilulis interchange. I'll have more updates coming up for you. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Outsurance pointsmen can't help your child's team win the game, but they can ease traffic congestion so you get to the match before kickoff and cheer them on. With the Outsurance pointsmen on the road for the past 20 years, we can all get to where we need to quickly and safely. Outsurance really means it when they say you always get something out. In proud partnership with 702, show them some love online using hashtag pointsmanlove. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP.
Betway's exclusive new games are taking the world by storm. Featuring massive Megaways jackpots. Take your shot on Cash and Riches, Wolf Blaze, Gallo Gold Brunos, and many more incredible experiences for you to choose from. You're guaranteed to find a new ultra fun favorite. Get way more only at Betway. Betway is licensed by the Mpumalanga Economic Regulator. No persons under the age of 18 are permitted to gamble. NRGP counseling line 0800 006 008. All events are fixed odds betting games.
At Premier Hotels and Resorts, business travelers staying alone enjoy a complimentary drink every night of their stay. So, whatever your tipple, it's on the house at any of our 24 hotels and resorts nationwide. Book today at premierhotels.co.za.
You know what success looks like. Now discover why focus is the driving force behind every success story. Catch 702 in conversation with Momentum on The Money Show with Stephen Krutters every Thursday, discussing the science of success. Step into the mindset of top financial achievers and discover how your thinking, behavior, and focus can shape lasting financial success. That's 702 in conversation with Momentum. Thursdays on The Money Show with Stephen Krutters. Momentum, your journey to success on 702. Momentum is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
702.
The Big Interview
with Bongani Bingwa.
18 minutes after 7 o'clock. Is multilateralism dead? That was really the big question ahead of this weekend's G20 summit. Could the most powerful nations in the world, representing the world's largest economies, come together to reach consensus on a plethora of issues ranging from climate justice to debt relief without the United States? Even with a declaration announced very early, can it become a living document and not just a relic on the shelf, as one paper asked today? Can the summit's declaration have implementable meaning without the most powerful nation in the world? We're joined now by Dr. Kingsley Makubela, who is a risk analyst and a former South African diplomat. Appreciate your time and thank you for joining us on 702 Breakfast today.
Thanks very much. Good morning, Bongani.
I'm particularly, of course, thinking of many aspects of your distinguished career as a public servant, including having been the CEO of Brand South Africa. You will know all about what goes into branding a country and a nation. How well did South Africa do, not only, I suppose, this past weekend, but indeed throughout its year of its G20 presidency?
Well, South Africa has done very well, Bongani, to really integrate different stratas in the society, taking it from the Brazilian presidents, the social summit, really bring to the fore a lot of groups that have big interests. What I think should have been done also was to lift up the Gen Z with a new phenomenon in world politics, to have a say in this kind of forum. But I think the country has done fantastic well in terms of the logistics, the optics. The only thing that one I think South Africa could have handled much better is this dispute with the United States.
Yeah. I'm sorry to come in there. I'm curious because, of course, just for the benefit of our listeners, I mean, as I said, you have had this distinguished career in public service, but also you are, of course, a holder of a PhD in political science focusing on conflict and as a risk analyst. How much could we, or what could we have done to avert this tension with the U.S.?
You know, Bongani, what should have been better managed is around, because the U.S. said they are not going to participate, which is unfortunate. It's a very big economy. It's a big power. They can underwrite huge international commitments. But once the U.S. came back to South Africa to say, we would only participate in the closing session, and at this level, South Africa should have said to the United States, that's perfect. And I agree that the president can't hand over to a junior person. But that shouldn't be the narrative, because states have the right to appoint their own representatives. States are sovereign. You can't determine at what level should people be represented. Even if it's at summit level, it has happened in many instances. What South Africa should have done was to say, okay, we will move the handover ceremony to a total different location. So there won't be any need for you to come to the closing session. We'll tell you when to do that. And stay out of handing over to a junior protocol, equal level, and still delegate that function to somebody at DECO to do that, without appearing to want to challenge who the United States should appoint as their legitimate representative. States are sovereign, and they appoint their own representative. If their credentials are confirmed by the sending state, they remain sovereign. I think that's why the biggest mistake that happened, and it may create a problem. Remember, you know, Bongani, states would always send people to represent them. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time. Take the representative of the Russian Federation. It's the deputy chief of staff in the office of the president. The equivalent in our case would be a deputy director general. Nothing wrong.
Dr. Makwela, hold on. If I may push back just a little, you'll remember the debacle in the White House earlier in the year where the South African delegation was, for all intents and purposes, there was an attempt to humiliate them. I mean, how much can one country take? The president has been quite clear that we will not be bullied by any country in the world. And also in the context of what the White House press secretary said, using those disrespectful words against our president, wasn't some kind of response necessary?
You know, Bongani, precisely because of understanding that there's tension between South Africa and the United States, and therefore our activities should have been handled with utmost care to try to de-escalate this tension that exists. You know, the United States has become a totally different country now. In 2023, you know, Jake Sullivan, who was the national security advisor in the Biden administration, made an observation and said the United States remain the world's prominent power, but some of its most vital muscles have atrophied. And one of this atrophy is in the diplomatic field. So you don't drag yourself to that level. You rise to the occasion. You use your diplomatic statecraft to articulate and manage the most tension situation. I think that's what South Africa should have done, and South Africa has the capacity to do that. But, you know, it doesn't help to say junior or so on.
Yeah.
The utmost and the end product of it. That's what South Africa should have communicated.
Could you make the same argument about our own diplomacy? Because here we are all these months since former Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool essentially was booted out of Washington, and we still don't have a permanent ambassador to the United States. I mean, some of what they would have done surely would have been to try and smooth out some of those wrinkles.
You know, part of what I'm thinking, Bongani, I don't know. You know, my view is that South Africa understands the importance of the United States. And I could not fathom that South Africa up to now would not appoint an ambassador and make a recommendation. I wouldn't be surprised that a recommendation has been made to the United States. They're sitting on it. I wouldn't be surprised as the case because of understanding the magnitude of the U.S. and how the U.S. can actually sabotage your agenda or they can add value to your agenda. That's quite important.
So let's talk about the actual summit then. So even as we celebrate that a declaration was announced and quite early on, the consensus is that that declaration, as the Business Day puts it today, was crutched in generalities, non-commitments and vague timelines. I mean, we all want, for example, wars in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Gaza to end, but there's no detail as to how all of that will happen.
Bongani, it goes to the understanding of what is consensus. In brief, consensus means synthesis of everyone's idea, incorporating this everyone ideas in the best possible thinking way. And because it's a consensus building, it's not a unanimous decision. And you must draw the distinction here. This declaration here was taken by consensus. And this consensus that was used, which was being referred to, is sufficient consensus, which essentially means that there may be a descending power, and the descending power in this case was Argentina. Because Argentina may have said, we don't agree entirely with everything that is in the document, but we are not going to be an obstruction for the adoption. So we agreed for the adoption, which I understand is what Argentina did. But this consensus within the G20, Bongani, is the power of one. If one country says no, it can't go ahead. You have to have the chairman's statement. And I think the founders of the G20 were quite deliberate to understand the power asymmetry within the G20, that if you were to allow the powerful and the majority to take these decisions, they will bully everyone. And that's why the power of one, which is consensus, was infused in this arrangement. And that's very important. In terms of the content, you're going to find a very contradictory language. I've gone through this communique many times. The only logical flaw is on the financial things. I think about 60 paragraph to paragraph 70, 66 paragraph to paragraph 70 or 74. That's where you find the logic in terms of the commitment, affirming, taking decision. Other paragraphs you see noting and so on. That's the diplomatic language that tells you there was no consensus. You just noting. Some of them, I take, for instance, the IMF reform. They're saying they must do further studies. For how long? Because the IMF has been a subject of discussion for reform up to now. So it tells you there's no consensus.
Look, we've seen declarations made, promises made, and at times ignored, or at least a sense that there was uneven compliance with them in the past. The moment has come. In general, I think, as we both agree, South Africa, at least in terms of exercising its soft power, has done well here. What real meaning will come after this, that remains to be seen. Appreciate your time. Dr. Kingsley Makubela, a risk analyst, former South African diplomat, joining us.
EWN Traffic.
This EWN Traffic is brought to you by South African Airways. SAA now operates 2 flights a day to Gaborone with morning and afternoon departures. Book now at flysaa.com. Amo?
Well, Bongani, we've got delays in Waterfall, specifically Allendale Road. This is due to an accident scene that happened right near Dane Road. Delays coming out of Zufontein Road. Please be on the lookout there. I'll have more details coming up shortly.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Experience Johannesburg to Gaborone with South African Airways, where comfort meets convenience. Enjoy premium service, flexible morning and afternoon departures, and the warm hospitality SAA is known for. For a limited time, return fares start from just 2,700 Rand, all inclusive. Book by 4 December at flysaa.com. South African Airways, bringing you closer. T's and C's apply.
EWN Business.
29 after 7. This business report is proudly sponsored by GIC. Through infrastructure-related projects, GIC sets a better standard of living. GIC, changing lives. Let's start with this BHP story, Muteo Kharipe. BHP abandoning a second bid to take over Anglo American.
Yeah, Australian mining giant BHP has pulled back from a last-ditch effort to buy Anglo American. The move would have bolstered BHP's copper operations and dominance in the market. In a release to Australia's Securities Exchange, BHP said it was no longer pursuing a potential combination with Anglo after preliminary discussions with Anglo's board fell short. Anglo shareholders are 2 weeks away from deciding on a tie-up between Anglo and Canada's Tech Resources, a deal worth $60 billion.
Spar shares sliding.
Yeah, Spar shares took a hit on Friday after the retail group warned that its earnings would drop by almost a third in 2025. Spar has signaled losses and exit costs from Poland and Switzerland. Headline earnings are expected to fall by as much as 32% in 2025. The company's share price is currently at R5.40 a share with a market cap of 20 billion rand. So they lost about 4% on the market on Friday.
Goodness me, as others enter the retail space, others are struggling. Where's the rand, Mateo?
Well, the rand has started off on a positive note this morning. Bongani, the rand at 17 rand 36 against the US dollar, exactly 20 rand against the euro, and you'll need 22 rand 73 cents against the British pound. Price of gold is down by 0.5% at $4,044 an ounce, while platinum is up more than 1% at $1,526. Brent crude still remaining quite low for those petrol and diesel prices at $62.60 a barrel. More business after 8.
Change requires skill, an agile body to fill the gaps. But real change moves collaboratively, progressively, enabling, because it knows what to do and how to improve the lives of the deserving. Through infrastructure-related projects, GIC actively brings change for the better, because real change sets a standard of living, of being. GIC, changing lives.
Time now for your latest eyewitness news. This one brought to you by Outsurance. SMS out to 45142 now. You could save on your car insurance. If you don't, ask them for 500 rand. Good morning again, Sfiso Zulu.
Thanks, Bongani. Good morning. Johannesburg Metro Police is warning that there will be some road disruptions today as the final delegation of the G20 summit departs. Routes going to OR Tambo International Airport, Lanseria and Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria will be the most affected. JMPD spokesperson Kolani Fihla says there will also be some rail closures and intermittent standstills across the province.
Motorists should expect a sudden full traffic halts lasting close to 30 minutes, and routes that can be affected are the R21, the R24, the N3, M1 and N1 and N14. We urge commuters to plan for significant extra travel time, use alternative routes where possible, and continuously monitor real-time traffic updates. And authorities are working to clear the network as quickly as possible once the final delegations have departed.
Joburg Mayor Dada Morero says he pulled off a successful event. The long-awaited international gathering took place over the weekend at the Nasrec Expo Centre in the south of Johannesburg. Morero says the city was hard at work assisting with preparations to host heads of states and other dignitaries. Alfred Mushwana reports.
In March this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa was quite frank with Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero, urging him to get his house in order before the visitors arrive for the G20 summit.
The environment that one observed was not a pleasing environment. I say this so that we can improve immensely, so that we do present a G20 that will wow people.
Morero now says he's satisfied with what his administration managed to achieve in cleaning up the metro right in time for the international event. He's made a promise that the intensified service delivery is here to stay and that it wasn't just a temporary effort for the G20 summit.
I suspect on Tuesday I'll be in one of the regions again to do high-impact service delivery.
Government has now hailed the event as a success. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News at the Nasrec Expo Centre in Johannesburg.
Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille says Gauteng has pulled in an estimated 1 billion rand in revenue from visitors attending the G20 events over the weekend. De Lille spoke to EWN yesterday on the sidelines of the last day of the Leaders Summit about the early estimation of the revenue.
We are busy with the audits.
because you want to get an accurate reflection now. From January, we have shown the visitors and the delegates what else they can do while they are in our country. We have sold packages. So some people are staying now after the G20. Some of them have come earlier. But in the next week or so, we'll be able to crunch the numbers.
Delil says arrivals from the US have now surpassed inbound tourists from the UK.
I suppose people want to come and see for themselves. Is it true? But also, tourism is not affected by the tariff debate and the geopolitics tension. And the American visitors are getting value for money when they come here.
And 3 people have died in Pakistan following an attack from gunmen and a suicide bomber at a paramilitary force headquarters in the northwest of the country. The first bomber carried out the attack at the main entrance and the other one entered the premises. Police suspect there are some terrorists inside the headquarters. Earlier this year, at least 10 people were killed and several others were injured in a similar terror attack when a car bomb detonated outside the paramilitary headquarters in Quetta. A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with showers expected today. The temperatures are at lows of 16 and 17 degrees, peaking at highs between 24 and 26.
And in the traffic in Nigeria, we've got an accident on the N1 South. It's right near the N12 exit. It's causing delays as of the Golden Highway and then traveling on the Mark 1 North. Peak time delays between Boysons Road and Empire Road.
The top story this hour, Gauteng road users are warned that there will be some road disruptions today as the final delegations of the G20 summit departs.
You could spend 10 minutes on social media or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. For his 2024 GWMP series, 54-year-old Amos now pays only 1,004 Rand a month. And for his 2024 Toyota Urban Cruiser, 55-year-old Andre pays just 776 Rand a month. Ready to get more out of your car insurance? SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Join the Times Square Lights Extravaganza this December. Experience our gardens outside the Sunbet Arena come alive with bright, sparkling festive lights. Take a stroll and discover mesmerizing photo opportunities at every turn. After that, grab a bite and drink in the Times Square festive atmosphere. Bring your friends and family and enjoy the Times Square Lights Extravaganza this December. Experience our gardens come alive with bright, sparkling festive lights.
When you train for results, you don't quit halfway. Stay on the growth track and earn up to 7.87% interest at maturity with a 12-month electronic fixed deposit account. Lock in for maximum growth and enjoy guaranteed returns without monthly fees. Hashtag Get Money Fit with Netbank. Visit netbank.co.za. See money differently. Netbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Hi, this is Anlia Itzebet, Hollywood Bet's brand ambassador. A reminder that you can still shoot for the stars while playing responsibly. If you or someone you know needs help, call the South African Responsible Gambling toll-free counselling line on 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop.
702.
WhatsApp Bongani on 072
702 1702.
Hi, Bongani. Lunga here from Tutuza. No, I hear the analyst there. However, Trump is not a normal president who would just send a delegation. He was being spiteful. I think this is the language that Trump understands. Any bully in any shape or form must be met with some counter-attack of some sort. This is the only language Trump understands.
Good morning, Bongani and team. Great show as always. I would like to disagree with Dr. Makubela. I think South Africa needs to write off its relationship with the US during the Trump administration, and let's hope that in the next administration, adults will return to the White House. Trump is not interested in improving South Africa's relationships in any way. So even if they handed over the leadership to this junior staffer, it wasn't going to make a difference. So let's also have our own self-respect. We cannot be begging Trump forever. There's so many other countries that we can have better relationships with and trade better with. we cannot be disrespected to this level.
Morning, Bongani. I totally disagree with your guest. I mean, what is he suggesting? That whenever the Americans kick us in our teeth, humiliate us, bully us, we must just keep on smiling? There must be no action from our side? Nah, I totally disagree with him.
I'm not sure if he's saying there must be no action, but he's making the argument that part of the reality is this is the preeminent power in the world. And ultimately, the G20, as he quite clearly noted, is about financial instruments. And the country that best underpins those will be the US. All these financial institutions need the US say-so in many respects. And so you can't win. You can't win at Trump's game. You can't out-Trump Donald Trump. And so what he's saying is, where you can be quiet, be quiet. You don't necessarily need to get on your megaphone and try and be as loud as he is, because the difficulty is that whilst this is about all we can do, the US can hurt us institutionally if they decide to exact their revenge against South Africa. I mean, we're saying, for example, that we're going to be at the next G20. Will we be welcome? That remains to be seen.
702.
What's the question?
What's the question is brought to you by Outsurance, a chance for you to win up to 3,000 Rand in cash. So first 1,000 Rand for the answer, and then a little later 2,000 Rand if you can give us the question. SMS out to 45142 now, and you could save on your car insurance. If you don't, ask for 500 Rand. Today's answer comes from Do in 4 ways. Do, please give us today's answer.
Hello, Dibongs. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Mdu.
The answer is 1991.
1991. And tell me, Mdu, have you got yourself a quote from Outsurance?
Yes, I do, Dibongs.
Your biscuit, 1,000 Rand is coming your way, all thanks to 702 and Outsurance. There you have it. Mdu says 1991. What's the question? Call us if you know on 011 883 0702.
EWN Sport.
All right, let's get straight into the cricket. Anthony Teixeira, India versus South Africa. It's the first session of day 3.
Yeah, it's done and dusted.
Who
We're
won?
currently on tea. Very much the Proteas have taken control of this test match as 4 wickets fell for just 93 runs scored. India reaching 102 for 4 in their first innings, trailing by a massive 387. Marco Jansen took the last wicket just before the session closed after Keshav Maharaj had claimed the first of the session and Simon Harmer picked up 2 in between. In fact, Harmer's doing something that the Indian bowlers struggled to do throughout that first South African bowlers innings rather. He's getting flight with his ball, and what that means is that he's getting a lot more rotation that's catching out the Indian batters, and so it's going to fielders because you can't get the power.
He'll remember how he was
exactly
how he was bowled out. He would have learned a thing or two. We're at lunch though, not tea, surely.
No, it's tea. So we take tea because it's in the east of India. So we take tea first and then lunch later in the session.
Oh, is that right?
That's what we're doing for this one.
I needed that clarity.
Yeah. Elsewhere, we had Pakistan winning the T20 against Zimbabwe by 69 runs. In the T20 challenge, the Dolphins secured a spot in the eliminator with a 2-wicket win over the Lions. Rassie van der Dussen with a quick-fire 94 from just 56 deliveries. While in football, North London remains red. Premier League leaders Arsenal beat Spurs 4-1. Eze with the hat-trick. Despite having only recorded a first win in 6 games into their league campaign, Aston Villa have moved into the top 4. They came from a goal down to beat Leeds 2-1 thanks to a Morgan Rogers brace. While in the CAF Confederation Cup group stage, Kaizer Chiefs lost their opener in Egypt to Al Mesri 2-1. Stellenbosch picking up a 1-0 win over Congolese side Otoho at home. Saturday, Mamelodi Sundowns started their CAF Champions League group stage with a 3-1 victory over St. Eloi Lupopo, while in the Betway Premiership, it was a 2-1 win for TS Galaxy over Golden Arrows, goalless between Richards Bay and Durban City. Let's switch to rugby now, where England held on for a 27-23 win win over Argentina. It turned sour at full time with an on-pitch altercation. Now, Tom Curry was the center of that incident, with Las Pumas unhappy. His late tackle resulted in an injury to fullback Juan Cruz Malia and a penalty, but no card or review.
Right, because it's not a book.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Our Pumas coach Philip Kontompomi even sharing that the English flank had slapped his chest.
Probably it's part of his nature to bully people, but he came off on the tunnel and he gave me a little smack. I'm 48. Maybe it's his nature, I don't know. Probably that's the guys we are rewarding and we praise. So maybe that's what rugby where we want rugby to go.
English coach Steve Borthwick admitted he didn't witness the incident, but felt the need to defend Curry's character.
Clearly, I'm aware there was an incident. I didn't see it. I wasn't there. I was in the changing room at the time. Anybody in this room who has had any contact with Tom Curry knows there's a character of a man. His character is impeccable. He's a fantastic team man, respectful guy.
And Italy made it a repeat of Davis Cups. They beat Spain 2-0 in that final, a first victory for the Italians over their European counterparts since 1997. Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
It's amazing what help can do. Help can take you from smart money moves to smart gadgets and household must-haves. With an FNB Premier Credit or Fusion card, get up to 40% back in e-bucks on devices and appliances. Open any FNB Premier account today, celebrating 25 years of helping you live the Premier life. FNB, help changes everything. TC's earn rules apply while stocks last. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and credit provider.
If you want a versatile SUV that's smart, efficient, and seriously advanced, meet the all-new BYD Sea Lion 5 plug-in hybrid. It's the affordable SUV that gives you electric power for your everyday trips, fuel-powered backup for your longer drives, and premium tech everywhere you look. The BYD Sea Lion 5 is packed with cutting-edge technology, from advanced driver assist safety features to the groundbreaking DMI technology. The BYD Sea Lion 5 makes every drive smarter. Visit www.byd.com and pre-book your test drive today. BYD, build your dreams.
Nothing beats the summer holidays, lazy pool days, ocean waves, festivals, food, and family fun. That special time is almost here, and with Fly Safair's affordable, flexible fares, you can zoom off to SA's hottest spots. Sunshine guaranteed, worries not included. For big holiday savings, use our low fare finder to hunt down the best flight prices in just seconds. Don't be a bummer. Fly into summer. Book now at flysafair.co.za. Fly Safair, for the love of flying.
EWN Traffic.
13 to 8, this EWN Traffic is brought to you by the Opel Mokka. It's all eyes on you when you drive the unmissable Opel Mokka. Visit opel.co.za or your nearest dealership to book a test drive today. Amo?
Bongani, in Honeydew, we've got an accident reported on Beyers Nodia Drive. It's right near Marina Street. It's causing heavy traffic volumes. Please be on the lookout there and try to use Malibongo Drive as an alternative towards areas like Randburg and Rand Park Ridge. If you are traveling on the N1 North, we've got delays also between Beyers Nodia Drive towards the Rivonia Road exit. That's due to peak time delays there. There's also queuing traffic reported on the Mike 1 South between the Baklu interchange and Corlett Drive. While traveling in Calvin, heavy traffic volumes reported along the N3 both directions between Vincent Chabalala Road and the Baklu interchange. Roadworks are taking place along this route, causing these heavy traffic volumes. I'll have more updates coming up. Do stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Dispatch, this is Patrol. We've pulled over a compact SUV. Not so sure about the color. Mamba, maybe. Mamba? Affirmative. Sleek. Futuristic. Different in a cool way. Definitely German. Approaching now.
Officer, do you need backup?
I just have to tell someone how cool it is.
Turn heads in the new unmissable Opel Mokka. Check out the bold design at your nearest dealer or on opel.coza.
702.
What's the question?
For 2,000 Rand in cash, all thanks to Arturance. Please tell me, what's the question? If the answer is 1991. Let's go to Nassim in Lenasia. Nassim, there you go. What's the question?
Good morning, Bongani. Yes, the question is, in what year did Freddie Mercury pass away?
Yes, indeed. One of the greatest to ever do it in terms of his abilities as a showman, as a vocalist, frontman. Yes, indeed. This was the day we lost the great Freddie Mercury in 1991. Nassim, 2,000 Rand in cash is coming your way, all thanks to Outsurance and 702.
My need is such, I pretend too much. I'm lonely, but no one can tell. Oh, yes, I'm the great pretender. Adrift in a world of my own. I play the game.
Deals come and go with Black Friday, but this Outsurance deal is here to stay. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your current car insurance premium, you can ask for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free with the same insurer for 3 years. So you could get monthly premium savings or at least 500 Rand cash. Get more out. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
Hi, this is Carol Shabalala, Hollywood Bet's brand ambassador. It's more fun when it's for fun. Playing responsibly is always a winning strategy. If you or someone you know needs help, call the South African Responsible Gambling toll-free counseling line on 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop.
Ask yourself, what matters most? Is it being there for their first steps and still around for their first dance? Knowing you're not just covered, but cared for. Bonitas goes beyond benefits and claims. We're in your corner for what matters most. Bonitas, medical aid for South Africa. Voted #1 medical aid in the Ask Africa Orange Index Awards for the 2nd year running. Visit bonitas.co.za and find your plan.
Do you suffer from heartburn and hyperacidity? To relieve heartburn for the whole day and night with one tablet, a potent once-a-day treatment which was previously prescription only is now available over the counter. Ask your pharmacist for an over-the-counter, long-lasting heartburn treatment. Brought to you by Sandoz.
702.
702. What's gone viral?
With Kabazela.
Time now for the world of viral content. Kabazela.
Good morning to you, Bear.
I love this first story. 1.3 million.
Yes, imagine that, hey? So this young guy, he was at a casino and he was gambling and he hit the jackpot. $1.3 million, and that is a heck of a lot of money, right? So if you were in that situation, who would you call first? Think about that one. So he called his mom straight away. That was the first call he made after he made those winnings. And he said to Mom, I've won this amount of money. We're moving. We're getting out of the area and where we stay, and we're going to have a better life. I've made it for us. So really nice conversation between him and his mom. So that's what I wanted to put to you and our 702 family this morning. When something good happens in your life, you get good news, you achieve something, who's the first person that you phone or you WhatsApp straight away to tell them the news? Who's that person for you and why?
Oh, gosh, I think it depends on the news, right? And maybe their connection to the news. I've got great news for you, Kabazela, actually.
Yeah.
So I've done Come Dine With Me, as you may remember. I've been invited to go be a guest judge for one episode only on MasterChef South Africa.
And? About blimmin' time.
I've got good news. There's my good news. Yeah, I've told everyone.
Okay.
So if you don't hear from me, if you don't hear from me tomorrow and Wednesday, that's the reason. I'm off to go judge on MasterChef. So that's my good news. The ThinkPad?
Yes. Now, this is a post that I thought we need to discuss. Somebody took a photo of the ThinkPad, the Lenovo ThinkPad laptop, and put it online and said basically that if your company issues these kinds of laptops, you don't have to worry about being laid off. And then this conversation just went bonkers about the ThinkPad and how people say that the ThinkPad is the ultimate laptop that is issued in the workplace. Now, I've never worked on a ThinkPad, I must be honest, but I was away last weekend and two people brought out their laptops and they were both ThinkPads with hectic security on them, and you couldn't send emails to this person and they couldn't open certain links, whatever it may be. So let's put it out there this morning. If you have a company issued laptop, what is the brand of laptop? And I wonder if the majority of laptops issued are the ThinkPad Lenovo. And then tell me why this ThinkPad is such an amazing machine. What is it about this ThinkPad?
I loved the comments. One Alex says, I started a senior tech role recently. After a couple of months, I got this bad boy and went, yeah, I'm going to be here a while. Tori says, this laptop screams, they're never firing you. They're just going to overwork your soul.
and one question, Bongles, if you look at the keypad on that laptop, there's a little red button in the middle. You've seen that little red button.
Yeah.
What does that do? What does that button do? What is so special about that little red button?
I tell you what, that means you and I don't have ThinkPad.
No, we don't.
We haven't been issued though.
Could I be laid off?
Yeah, hey. Mr. Long Service himself. All right, what is that ThinkPad laptop for you? What's the best thing about it? And Kabazela wants to know that little red button. And if you have a company-issued laptop, what brand is it? And who's that person you call with your first bit of good news?
702.
702. Feedback.
With Siamtanda Matiso.
Siamtanda Matiso, who do you call first with good news? Your mom.
Honestly, my friend. Wow, my mom.
Really?
Let me tell you, when
Not
I
your mom.
got this job, I said to my mom, please just hold on for a sec. Do not tell anyone. I just want to first experience it because they might have made a lie. Maybe they made a mistake in hiring me. They might call me and said, hey, listen, we got the wrong Samtanda. That's what I was thinking. My mom told all of her siblings. And then when I said, Mom, why? She was like, it's just my siblings. I told them to not tell anyone. And I'm like, what are the chances, Mom?
If you want the news to travel, tell your mom. Is
Like-
that what it is?
Many responding to the G20 summit. To sum up their feelings, Bongs, there's a bit of frustration because obviously the routes were closed. Finding alternative routes was quite difficult for some. Getting to their destination was quite longer. But they are very, very proud of the president on how he handled himself, on how we also handled ourselves. I just want to say me and Bapilile were there and it was such a fun experience. It was our first and it was seamless. The G20 employees were just so nice and they handled it
I love how you
well.
say it was your first. like there are other people. Like Sfisa Zulu was going there for the second time.
No. But as I
it
was
was
saying,
a first for a lot of people.
Exactly. But like hearing from Vincent Magwenya, the presidential spokesperson, that the leaders have come to a consensus when it comes to the declaration of the summit was just one of those moments where we were all like excited that it seems like everything was just moving forward, but also just witnessing the buzz and energy at the summit was just exciting. So I'm super, super proud, much like the 702 landers, of how the summit went. And also you asked that question, how do you handle family feud? And it's on the back of the sisters, the Zuma sisters, having a criminal case against each other. And many are saying, listen, sit down with your family members, have a conversation. Maybe something will come out of that. Cook, make a nice meal, sit down. But then some are saying, listen, you might sit down. It depends on the personalities in that family and how things. And some are saying, listen, I arrive late. On the day of the event is when I arrive. Some are saying, if there is no voice of reason, I'm not even attending that event because I know that no one is going to be there to say let's stop, let's think, let's calm down, and let's come.
Arrive late,
Yeah.
leave early. I think that's the mantra for many people when it comes to family conflicts and what the disputes might be.
Yeah.
We were scheduled to speak to Zane Dango from Durko,
Yeah.
so we're still hoping that we can still have that conversation, but we'll obviously see how that pans out. All right, that's the feedback with
Siyamthanda
Siamthanda Madiso.
You're with Bongani Bingwa.
702 weekday mornings, 6 to 9 a.m.
Morning, Bongani and team. This is Nkuleo from Epony Park. Yeah, Bongani, with the G20 weekend, yeah, all looked good. Security tight. We felt safe, you know. We saw the cops, the metro cops were all over Joburg. Yeah, it felt safe. But now, Joburgers, I warn you, these guys are thirsty. It's been about 4 days now. No cold drink, no McDonald's. Brace yourselves. Ichocho has gone up 100%. Starting from today, you are all in trouble.
I mean, it sounds like he's obviously, taking the mickey out of it, but there might well be. Imagine being a cop who has a budget, right? You must make so much choo-choo. In November, Christmas is coming. So this weekend cut their choo-choo because there's no time for that. Goodness me, it's 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
More floods caused devastation in KwaZulu-Natal, and roads are expected to be closed in some parts of Gauteng. Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. Emergency services in KwaZulu-Natal are searching for at least 3 people after they were swept away by floods in the Midlands. The mission in New Hanover comes a day after houses were submerged in water and critical infrastructure damaged. The South African Weather Service has issued a warning for more downpours in the province. Nhlanhla Mabaso reports from KZN.
The recent severe weather has brought panic in New Hanover as some people have had to evacuate their homes due to flooding. KZN Cooperative Governance spokesperson Senzelwe Mzila says a search and rescue mission is underway.
Disaster management teams are working around the clock to locate the missing. Disaster management teams are working across the clock to respond to several incidents that have occurred across the broader Umgungundlovu district as a result of the inclement weather conditions.
Residents have been warned to stay vigilant as the weather warning remains in place. Nhlanhla Mabaso, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, forecaster Letlogonolo Tobela says an 80% chance of rain is also expected to cause localized flooding in Gauteng and other parts of the country.
A possibility of damaging winds as well as a possibility of hail and excessive lightning expected over the northwest, Free State, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, as well as parts of Limpopo, into the central and the western parts of KwaZulu-Natal.
Johannesburg Metro Police are warning of some road closures today as more G20 visitors depart. Routes going to OR Tambo International Airport, Lanseria and Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria will be the most affected. JMPD spokesperson Xolani Fihla says there will also be some rail closures and intermittent standstills across the province.
Motorists should expect a sudden full traffic halts lasting close to 30 minutes, and routes that can be affected are the R21, the R24, the N3, M1, and N1 and N14. We urge commuters to plan for significant extra travel time, use alternative routes where possible, and continuously monitor real-time traffic updates. And authorities are working to clear the network as quickly as possible once the final delegations have departed.
Minister in the Presidency Khumbuzo Ntshavheni insists there's no tension between South Africa and the US as Washington gears up to take over the G20 presidency next year. President Cyril Ramaphosa closed the Leaders Summit yesterday, hosted in Johannesburg after a US boycott. Ntshavheni says cabinet ministers are not concerned about having their visas revoked as they prepare to travel to the US for next year's summit. Babalondenza reports.
Minister Khumbuzo Ntshavheni says the declaration at the summit is not just about South Africa and involves several other countries, including the European Union and African Union. She says South Africa will remain part of discussions, even though the US chose to stay away from the summit. But the minister in the presidency says this does not mean there's tensions between the two nations.
There are no tensions between us and the US. The declaration that has been adopted is the declaration of the G20 leaders. It's not a declaration of one country over the other. It's a declaration of the G20 leaders. It has been accepted.
Nchabeni says the United Kingdom will take over after the US and South Africa's voice will still be heard.
We'll remain part of the Troika of the G20 and we'll make sure that the South African voice will be there. If they don't want us to participate, they'll have to tell the 19 other members of the G20.
Nchabeni says they are also not bothered that the US government might turn its sights on other members of cabinet after revoking former International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor's visa without offering any explanation. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Nasrec.
And there are hopes in Nigeria that more than 200 children kidnapped from a Catholic school will be released. 50 pupils managed to escape from captivity over the weekend and are now reunited with their families. Armed bandits kidnapped 303 children and 12 teachers last Friday. 253 pupils and 12 teachers are still held by the kidnappers. The abduction is just the latest in a wave of attacks by armed groups that target vulnerable civilian populations and orchestrate mass abductions for ransom. Gold is trading at $4,105.70 an ounce. The rand is at 17.35 to the dollar, 22.74 to the pound, 20 rand exactly to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $62.58 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got bumper-to-bumper delays on the N3 North between the Elands interchange and the Kilulis interchange. An accident has been reported between these 2 points. There's also queuing traffic in Honeydew along Bears Nodia Drive. This is due to another accident causing delays towards Marina Street.
And in your sport, India start after day 3 tea, 4 wickets down in their first innings, trailing the Proteas by over 350 runs in a bit of bother. Man United host Everton in the Premier League clash of the evening, and Rassie Rasmus reflects on the Springboks' reached goals and objectives ahead of the final test of the year.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng, along with showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 26 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: emergency services in KwaZulu-Natal are searching for at least 3 people after they were swept away by floods in the Midlands.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
6 minutes after 8 o'clock, Kabazela wants to know, who is that first person you call with your good news? When you've got news to share, not bad, but great news, who do you call first? And what laptop has your company issued you with? Is it a ThinkPad? And do you reckon that if it is a ThinkPad, that means you're going to be staying in that business for a while, as some have suggested? On X, reflecting, of course, on the weekend that was, what are your thoughts on the G20 summit? I want you to listen now to the International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola. He was speaking to Newsroom Africa yesterday, saying, yes, of course, we're coming to Florida. We will be there.
Definitely, South Africa will participate. We are a member state of the G20. We are not an invited guest country. We are a member state of the G20. So we have a right to participate, and we will be participating.
That's, of course, in reference to when the United States will host the G20 summit in 2026. It was a proud moment, I suspect, for many South Africans as President Cyril Ramaphosa formally closed the summit yesterday, saying that the foundation of solidarity had been laid.
We have laid the foundation of solidarity. Now we must build the walls of justice and the roof of prosperity. Let us move forward together, demonstrating to the world that we do have the capacity to confront and overcome the world's challenges through partnerships, across society, and by remembering our common humanity, we can create a more secure, a more just, and a more prosperous world. And together, we can ensure that no one is left behind. I now say that this gavel of this G20 summit formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States, where we shall see each other again next year. The summit is therefore closed.
The summit therefore closed, said the president yesterday. Here's a question, particularly if you are a resident of Johannesburg. What were your observations, particularly over the last week, in terms of police visibility, in terms of traffic flow, in terms of crime rates? What were your impressions of the city? And how do you feel that this show was largely due, as it should have, by the way, due to the G20? So, to be clear, I'm saying, of course, there should be police visibility when we have international visitors. So that, I have no quibble with that. But should that be the only time things function? The mayor, Dada Morero, says, no, it wasn't only for the G20. He says it's going to continue the way it was this weekend. It's going to be amazing. Joburg is going to be a different city.
Part of my work was to ensure that I deal with constraints within the management teams, to ensure that I block what has been making them not to move as managers, as leaders. Because part of the problem, I've always said, it's a management issue. So deal with that, correct that, and that is why we're beginning to see results. Political stability, ensure at the level of your mayoral committee, you've got stability, and all of us are focused on one objective, on one job. And that is why we are seeing the results now. It took a long time, from November to around June, where to set up the systems. And now we are seeing the results that we want. They're not really where we still want them to be. There's still issues that I still have to address internally to get management and supervision to happen. It's simple. Check us on Tuesday. If we are not on the ground on Tuesday, then it means we're doing it for the G20. But if you see us in all the regions, continuing to unblock service delivery failures through what we call the mayoral high impact service delivery program. So we'll be there in all the regions as we continue to do so.
High delivery impact, says the mayor. So that voice note talking about, I said Jojo. Muteo.
You said Juju.
Is it Juju?
No, and it's actually Jojo.
Yo, guys, I can't.
Don't ask me how I know, but it's Jojo.
The point is, we will never know. We will never know because the mayor is going to fix it all.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Our good friend Toby Shapshak, editor-in-chief and publisher of Stuff Studios, joins us now. Toby, no doubt you heard my conversation with Jonathan Fairbairn, Kabazela, about this ThinkPad laptop, and he wants to know, what's that red button in the middle of the keyboard?
It's a joystick to navigate your it's like a joystick. It's like a mouse. So you can use it with either finger to move the cursor around on the keyboard, on the screen. It's a piece of design genius. I listened to you and Kabazela talking, or Kabazela and you talking about the ThinkPad on the way to drop my son at school, and I thought, I loved my ThinkPads. I had a whole bunch of them. In fact, the guy who sold me the ThinkPad, I'm sure I can say the story now, he was the head of IBM, and then went on to be the head of a whole bunch of other things, real heavy hitter, Oliver Fortuyn. And he said to me he'd only ever sold 2 ThinkPads in his life, one to me and one to Thabo Mbeki. And that was my first ThinkPad. It's a piece of design genius. I mean, absolutely, if someone gives you one of those, they totally value you, they think you're really good, they're also going to work you like a slave. It's so brilliant. The keyboard is amazing. The hardware, the infrastructure. So there's this guy, you got to get him on. His name's Julian Pinar. He's called Mr. ThinkPad. I'm sure he still works for Lenovo. You should get him on just to talk about his own craft brewery, for instance. And he lives and breathes ThinkPads. And the first time, the ThinkPad, yeah. And the first time I saw this happen, I was with a friend who's now a friend, a guy in PR called Marcus Sora. And he took me, he said, you've got to meet this guy, Julian. He just loves ThinkPads. You love ThinkPads. You've got to meet Julian. And off we go, and we're sitting there, and Marcus has bought cappuccinos for Julian and I, and we're sitting in a boardroom in Lenovo, and Julian picks up the corner of the laptop to say, look, we understand that most people only pick up their laptops on this right-hand corner, so we reinforce it, we put in an extra bracket, and then he's waving the laptop around. And he smacks the cappuccino, I think, in Marcus's hand, and the cappuccino falls on the keyboard. And he says, don't worry, we'll just pour a glass of water through. And he pours a glass of water through the keyboard. And I'm going like, no, you know, that's slow.
Yeah.
And he just pours, he goes, Marcus turns to me, goes, don't worry, he does it all the time. Lenovo built the ThinkPad with waterproof ThinkPad with a little drain because they know schmucks like us spill coffee and things on their keyboard. So if you put your hands on that keyboard and you use that little, I called it the nipple, the trackpad, I became completely ambidextrous. I could use my left hand as well as my right hand. Not many men will say that to you, Bongani, on the radio. And it was so brilliant. My mother's going to hear about this.
Toby.
My mother's. So you can. It's the most unbelievable designed computer. It's ruggedized. It's hard. You know, when IBM, it was an IBM computer, and they sold the whole computer division to Lenovo. IBM realized they weren't in PC sales anymore. They were in services, and that's what they are. They're a services company.
I think we've got the gist of it, but I think this idea that if that's the one you've been issued with by your company, clearly they value you. Toby Shapshak, appreciate you calling in about that. What laptop have you been given by your bosses?
Good morning, Bongani. I worked at an employer about 3 years ago, and we were issued with ThinkPads. It was so hard at that place. It was so depressing that that's the only place where I've ever cried about work, ever.
So what I find interesting is that everybody loves the actual computer, right? They love the laptop, but they also recognize you are now about to suffer. You are about to suffer.
Let's talk.
We're listening.
Bongi. Good morning, man. Happy Monday. Bongi, this is Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. Let me tell you, feuds between sisters. Man, we were a family of 7 siblings, 2 sisters. And those sisters were forever in each other's hair. At some stage, there was a point where they worked together and they just could not stood each other. My baby sister actually left the house, and she only returned after 13 years. 13 years, 1-3, because of the spat that was between the two of them. And yeah, it really was not nice for us as a family that our only 2 sisters were at each other's hair. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Hey, good morning, Bongani and team. In my view, the best way to handle conflict in a family is by sitting down and talking, and not just talking around issues, but really talking to issues and calling a spade a spade. And when you do so, also be honest. Have honest, though difficult, but honest conversations about feelings, about offenses, about everything, and be respectful of each other and don't take sides. I think that's how to. Unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. Mzwandile, the Hill, Joburg South.
Good morning, Uncle Bongos. So resolving family conflict, so from my side,
it's best to talk. That's what we do as a family. We sit down, we put our issues on the table, we address them. It's Matwala here from Kempton Park.
Good morning, 702 Landers Bongs on the team. Shout out this morning makes for very honest radio. I'm listening from a point of gathering some insights. Family is currently in shambles, man. It's funny, it only just took 2 members passing away and the whole family structure came down collapsing. Different camps, feuds between aunts have now sort of migrated onto cousins, and yeah, the whole thing is just looking unfamiliar, man. It's just looking very unfamiliar, to the point where I think everyone is just convinced that there's no point of return. So yeah, looking forward to more responses on this one. Thank you.
Thank you for that heartfelt and really, really vulnerable voice note. Sometimes there isn't a point of returning. Sometimes that's just how it is. And it's really difficult when the next generation gets involved. Do you know what I mean? When it's the big people's fight and the little people get involved and make it their business, when actually it really is none of their business. It's just how it goes sometimes. And just to be clear, we had promised you an interview with one of the MK party members who says they were recruited to go and fight in Ukraine. Well, he says they were trained. They were promised to be trained to be security guards because, clearly that kind of training in South Africa is very scarce and nobody does it so well, do they? He sent us a voice note and he says they're being whisked off now to go and fight, so he can no longer talk to us. He says, in fact, that was one of the last voice notes he was able to send because they've taken their phones and they're off to go and fight. And he doesn't know if they will come out of that situation alive, but they've taken them away. And so he obviously now can no longer come on the radio. So he says.
EWN Traffic.
21 minutes after 8 o'clock. Amo, who's stuck in traffic?
Well, Bongani, people along the N1 South, this is between the Brakfontein interchange and Olifantsfontein Road. Peak time delays here, as well as on the N4 West in the city of Tshwane between Tamboti Avenue and the Proofplus interchange. While traveling on the R80 East Mabopane Highway, more traffic volumes between the R55 and Eskempatlele Drive. If you are traveling in Calvin, do be on the lookout for roadworks that are taking place along the N3 North. Delays towards the Baklu interchange as we come out of Vincent Chabalala Road, and we still have got that major accident scene on the N3 South. This is in the Bedfordview area. It's causing delays between the Gleenies interchange and Van Buren Road. I'll have more updates. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
South Africa is taking its place on the world stage, the B20 and the G20 Summits 2025. Telkom is proud to stand with the nation, building a digital future that reaches every community through reliable fiber, mobile, and cloud networks. Telkom is connecting families, small businesses, and young people to new opportunities. They're helping drive digital public infrastructure so services are easier to access for all. Telkom, the digital backbone of South Africa's future.
You could spend 10 minutes trying to fix the office printer, or get a 10-minute quote from OUTsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. SMS OUT to 45142. Like 65-year-old Helena, who now pays an incredibly low 398 Rand a month for her 2025 Hyundai Extra. With OUTsurance, you get the legendary Out bonus that pays you a percentage of your premiums back if you're claim-free. SMS OUT to 45142. After switching, 48-year-old Felicity now pays only 836 Rand a month for her 2020 Hyundai Tucson. OUTsurance will either save you money on your car insurance or give you cash. If OUTsurance can't beat what you're currently paying, ask them for 500 Rand. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Savings or cash, you have nothing to lose. SMS OUT to 45142. That's OUT to 45142. OUTsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
You've heard the songs, but until you've seen it live, you haven't experienced the magic of cats. Coming to Monte Casino from 17 January until 22 February, it's the memory shared by millions. Book now at Web Tickets. Brought to you by Peter Turin and GWB Entertainment.
702, The World View.
With Adam Gilchrist.
24 minutes after 8 o'clock. Adam, these floods and this weather, it's really been the story of the year. The latest now in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's that thing, isn't it? Where will this extreme weather hit next? And yet Vietnam is the place where they've had such torrential rain. Can't really go beyond that. Just unbelievably heavy rain, such that there's been flooding and indeed landslides and mudslides, and people evacuated from homes. 90 people have died at least, although that figure is a little bit old now. I was looking for an update and couldn't find one, but at least 90 have lost their lives. Another 12 are missing, hundreds of people injured. Thousands and thousands of people without homes. 186,000 homes are said to have been damaged or swept away completely. Also, a stat that you don't often hear about with things like disasters is the number of livestock who've been killed or swept away in the floods. 3 million, in particular cattle, but other livestock as well. Which of course means livelihoods have been swept away in the process. This is on top of the fact that there was flooding in the specific province of Dak Lak in Vietnam, where 60 people lost their lives. Also on top of the 2 typhoons, which we talked about, which hit Vietnam at the end of their trail within weeks of each other. 250,000 people without power. Military and police resources have mobilized but are stretched to breaking point. I mean, Vietnam doesn't have a lot of spare cash, so this is really going to hit hard.
Can peace come to Ukraine, Adam?
Well, there's the question. It depends who you listen to at the moment. I'd say objectively, it looks still quite a long way off, but there at least are some talks in Geneva. On the other hand, you've got some talks in Geneva which involve the Americans and de facto the Russians, because they on the phone mainly, but then there are also the European talks with Ukraine sort of flipping between the two. According to the White House, a White House spokesman says the talks to end the war in Ukraine have been, quote, candid, detailed and productive. Candid suggests, often there's a disagreement. It's political speak, isn't it, for we're having a right old ding-dong behind closed doors. Productive? Well, they haven't yet signed anything or agreed anything. And the basic fact is, and this is why Europe has been involved, is that they're looking at this going, we haven't supported Ukraine just to throw it all out. And why is Donald Trump so insistent on something that absolutely seems to suit Russia far more than anyone else, although it also suits the Americans, because $100 billion worth of seized Russian goods, would some of it go to America under this plan? In other words, they will make a profit. It does feel like profit comes before most other things. And in the case of a war, you kind of wonder about that. But the 28-point plan cedes territory to Russia that they fought for and haven't won. It reduces the size of Ukraine's armed forces, but not Russia's. It insists no NATO membership at all in the future, and has only a vague security promise, a sort of a, yeah, we'll help you if something happened. I mean, it's not quite the we're all for one, one for all kind of philosophy. It doesn't look like something that suits Ukraine terribly much. And then for Donald Trump to suggest that Volodymyr Zelensky has been ungrateful again, remember that he did that in the White House at that famous press conference. But Volodymyr Zelensky has said thank you a gazillion times since then. I mean, how much more grateful do you have to be? It's short of, has he written a thank you note? I remember my auntie and uncle always liked a thank you note after Christmas. Maybe it's that. Thank you, Donald Trump, for the present.
I suspect Trump wouldn't believe him even if he was on his knees. Staying with Ukraine, certainly this story will suit them a little better.
Yeah, a sumo wrestler who left his homeland after the full-scale invasion because he'd met and made contact with a sumo wrestler. And so Danilo Yavhusishin thought, do you know what? I'll have a go. He's obviously a bulky chap. He also was already a wrestler, albeit a more standard wrestler. So off he's gone and has now won an elite level sumo tournament. He defeated a top-ranked Mongolian sumo wrestler. I imagine right now in Japan, there are phone-ins about where have all our homegrown sumo wrestlers gone? The Ukrainians, the Mongolians. I actually had a look. The World Sumo Tournament was in London only a few weeks ago. There have been sumo wrestlers from Hungary, Georgia, the United States, Egypt, China, Brazil, Argentina, all over the world. Is sumo a new global sport if more and more people are taking part from other countries other than Japan? I put it to you, for those of us with a little bit of timber on us, maybe a sport for fat blokes is the thing.
Adam Gilchrist, we'll leave it there for this morning's Worldview.
EWN Business.
Go to business news now. Muteo, Sea Harvest, they've sold their dairy products division.
You almost have to read that twice, right? Yes, they had a dairy division as Sea Harvest. I'll explain why. Sea Harvest says it has agreed to sell its Ladysmith cheese business to Fairfield Dairy for up to 850 million rand. The fish and products firm says the sale will help offload debt and streamline its operations. Sea Harvest had bought the business when fishing licenses were hard to come by around 2018. Ladysmith produces 15,000 tons of cheese and butter, and now they've decided to refocus their business on seafood and products like that.
Whose Anglo-American is it anyway?
Australian mining giant BHP has pulled back from a last-ditch effort to buy Anglo-American. The move would have bolstered BHP's copper operations and dominance. In a release to Australia's Securities Exchange, BHP said it was no longer pursuing a potential combination with Anglo after preliminary discussions with Anglo's board fell through. Anglo shareholders are just 2 weeks away from deciding on a tie-up between Anglo and Canada's Teck Resources, a deal worth $60 billion.
Fuel your passion. Unleash your inner fire. Not quite for SPAR.
No, SPAR shares took a hit on Friday, down 4% as the retail group warned that its earnings could drop by almost a third in 2025. This comes as the company faces write-downs and exit costs in its Poland, Switzerland and South African operations. Headline earnings were lower by between 7.5% and 12.5% for the year ending in September. Earnings per share from continuing operations are expected to fall by between 40% and 50%. SPAR shares price is currently at 103 Rand a share with a market cap of 20 billion Rand.
Where's the Rand?
17 Rand 34, stronger against the dollar this morning at 19 Rand 99 cents against the euro, and you'll need 22 Rand 71 cents to get a British pound. Price of gold also in the red at $4,049 an ounce, while platinum is up close to 2% at $1,536. Brent crude at $62.71 a barrel. Stephen Grotes with more this afternoon.
Time for the latest eyewitness news. Straight to the news desk we go. Sfiso Zulu, good morning.
Thanks, Bongani. Good morning. Trade and Industry Minister Parks Dawu says South Africa is expected to continue lobbying for the extension of AGOA after a crippling government shutdown ended in the U.S. almost 2 weeks ago. In addition to the impacts on the U.S., the stalemate also put on ice South Africa's bid to renew the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which lapsed in September. AGOA, which was established in the year 2000, exempts eligible African countries from taxes on their exports to the U.S. Despite renewed tensions between Pretoria and Washington over U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to snub the G20 Leaders Summit in Joburg this weekend, Dawu says South Africa hopes it'll be business as usual on trade matters.
Now that Congress has actively resumed, ours is to go back to Congress. The argument has always been this is a decision made by Congress. Therefore, you need congressmen and women to be in session to be able to engage. And now that they're back there, we'll certainly be continuing our lobbying for AGOA.
Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille says Gauteng has pulled in an estimated 1 billion rand in revenue from visitors attending the G20 events over the weekend. De Lille spoke to EWN on the sidelines of the G20 Leaders Summit yesterday about the early revenue estimation.
We are busy with the audits because you want to get an accurate reflection now. From January, we have shown the visitors and the delegates what else they can do while they're in our country. We have sold packages. So some people are staying now after the G20. Some of them have come earlier. But in the next week or so, we'll be able to crunch the numbers.
De Lille says arrivals from the US have now surpassed inbound tourists from the UK.
I suppose people want to come and see for themselves. Is it true? But also, tourism is not affected by the tariff debate and the geopolitics tension. And the American visitors are getting value for money when they come here.
Meanwhile, Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero says he pulled off a successful event. The long-awaited international gathering took place over the weekend at the Nasrec Expo Centre in the south of Johannesburg. Morero says the city was hard at work assisting with preparations to host heads of states and other dignitaries. Alfara Mushwana reports.
In March this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa was quite frank with Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero, urging him to get his house in order before the visitors arrive for the G20 summit.
The environment that one observed was not a pleasing environment. I say this so that we can improve immensely, so that we do present a G20 that will wow people.
Morero now says he's satisfied with what his administration managed to achieve in cleaning up the metro right in time for the international event. He's made a promise that the intensified service delivery is here to stay and that it wasn't just a temporary effort for the G20 summit.
I suspect on Tuesday I'll be in one of the regions again to do high-impact service delivery.
Government has now hailed the event as a success. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News at the Nasrec Expo Centre in Johannesburg.
And finally, a Ukrainian refugee has become the first person from his country to win a sumo wrestling tournament. The 21-year-old arrived in Japan at the age of 18 in 2022 after the Russian invasion of his country. He's only the second Ukrainian in the elite division in sumo. Despite only being a professional sumo for a short time, he has gained fans in Japan and worldwide with his impressive skills, constant improvement and competitiveness. A cloudy day in store for Gauteng, along with showers and thunder showers expected this Monday. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 26 degrees.
And in the traffic, we've got delays on the N3 North. This is between the Yelands interchange and the Kilulis interchange while traveling. On the N3 South, an accident right near Van Buren Road. It's causing delays coming out of the Kilulis turn off. While traveling in Rand Park Ridge, an accident reported on the N1 North. It's right after Beyers Nodia Drive, causing delays.
The top story this hour, Parkstar says South Africa is expected to continue lobbying for the extension of AGOA.
Access to the internet is vital for any country to grow. That's why the recent 6.75 billion rand digital infrastructure deal that Standard Bank Corporate and Investment Banking facilitated between Telkom and an Actis-led consortium is so transformational for South Africa. It unlocks growth and provides internet access to underserved communities who will now have access to the internet for the very first time. Search CIB Stories of Impact to watch the full story.
Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and really all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch it this Wednesday at 10 to 9. We're speaking to Total Energies. Their corporate affairs and CSI manager, Talita Sachane, will be in conversation with us. Join us every Wednesday to highlight efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and together make a difference.
Since December 2024, South Africa has proudly led the G20, guided by a powerful theme: solidarity, equality and sustainability. From the heart of Africa, we're bringing fresh voices and bold ideas, united by a commitment to build a future where no one is left behind, where economies grow fairly and where our planet's health guides every decision. South Africa's G20 Presidency 2025, together shaping tomorrow. This message is brought to you by the Department of International Relations and Cooperation.
702.
WhatsApp Bongani on 072
702 1702.
Morning, Bongani and Kabazela. So the first person I tell good news, even bad news, is my youngest brother. So there's me, there's one who comes after me, then there's him. I mean, I tell him anything. If I win 100 million tomorrow, he'll be the first to know. If I didn't get that job or that thing I applied for, he's the first to know. And after I tell him, I am super okay. His name is Lebogang Mapotoma.
Morning, Bongani. Morning, team. I obviously call my little sister for everything. But anything to do with my man, stuff like that, I call my friends. I've got a few close friends, then I'll call them one by one and tell them, and stuff like that. But I call. And then for anything else, after I call my sister, I call my partner. So yeah, that's how it is. But one thing for sure I won't do is to tell my mother-in-law, I'll even hear it from my own parents that, oh, we had this and this. That woman cannot hold it. She cannot. But yeah.
Morning, Uncle Bob. Happy Monday. Happy final week of November. I always tell my mom. Always tell my mom. Good news, bad news, news in between. It's always my mom that's the first to know. My sister and I are also very close. I don't like telling my mom things over the phone, so I usually wait until I see her. But my sister's like, what happened? Tell me. So she's first by default because she doesn't mind being told these things over the phone, but it's generally my mom. And my mom will celebrate. She will celebrate with you. She will cry with you. She will show you love. My mom. That's it.
Oh, that's lovely to hear. Who's that first person you call when you've got some good news?
EWN Sport.
Anthony Teixeira, you
Good
have
morning.
good news for me.
I do have good news.
You have good news for me.
I do.
Tell me what it is in front of everyone. For
good-
all of 702 land to hear.
The good news is that the Proteas are fairly, in a great position in the test match.
And that means this
And
test match has been
exciting. It's been incredibly exciting.
And therefore that means test match cricket is not.
This one is not, but yes, it's been an exceptional one. I will admit, I might be getting a little bit older. I might even be getting old because I'm enjoying test cricket.
Oh, look at you. Look at you.
But yeah, we will start with that test match as India have their backs against the wall in the second test against the Proteas with the potential follow-on hanging over them in that first innings. They're still 154 runs away from if not making it out of that enforced follow-on. They're 135 for the loss of 7. They've lost 2 more wickets after T, and of course leaving them in a bit of trouble. It also puts that Mutusami century yesterday and Janssen's 93 in perspective, and really absolutely decent from them.
Here's the thing, almost all the South Africans got some kind of a start.
Yeah, there was contributions.
Right? And so that's how we get to such a mammoth total, but it was really only that batting yesterday, those two partnerships that were so key in obviously making sure that that score was what it became. And you're seeing a little bit of that with India as well, but not quite to that degree. They all kind of seem to be getting a start, and then it falls apart.
Well, this test match is also vindication if you look at it, because a lot of people complained that the Proteas in the last test cycle had easy test series, and so they sort of walked into the final without really having a challenge. And here they are against India in India.
But also having won that test championship against the Aussies.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that argument can still be made.
No, not at all. Meanwhile, a wet outfield in the T20 knockout final Sunday saw it pushed to a reserve day. The Knights will resume midway through their innings on 92 for 3 against Eastern Cape. Let's switch to football. One more fixture left in match day 12 of the Premier League. Theatre of Dreams hosting Man United Everton, while the weekend saw Arsenal open up a 6-point lead as they hammered North London rival Spurs 4-1 at the Emirates. The Gunners making it the most of that Man City defeat to Newcastle Saturday evening. Here's coach Mikel Arteta.
Well, a great day. Since the moment that the players come back from international duty, I sense a feeling that they wanted to be together again, that they were ready for a fight, they were ready for a big week. I think individually the players were exceptional from the minute one. We were super dominant in almost every phase of the play. So, yeah, a day to remember. You don't win a derby 4-1 every time, and hopefully we made a lot of Arsenal supporters very proud and happy.
Since winning the Merseyside derby in the middle of September, Liverpool have lost 6 and won just one league game since the reigning champs have also tumbled down to the bottom half of the log. In rugby, the Springboks have one more test before they close out a very successful 2025. It's seen the world champs hold the number 1 ranked spot in the world, win back-to-back rugby championship titles for the first time, lose only 2 tests with an 89% win rate, and hooker Malcolm Marx was rewarded with the World Rugby Player of the Year. Coach Rassie Rasmus says in 2026, more experimentation is to be expected, as this year was about consolidating a place in that first part of the Rugby World Cup draw. which takes place next month.
We still know if we lose to Wales next weekend, we can drop 2 places. But being in the top 4 in world rankings this year was probably the aim for us while rotating. I think we've used 50 players this year. And next year can be probably a bit more experimental because I think the 7th of December the World Cup draw is taken, and if you're outside the top 5 or 6, then you might be like in a pool of death.
And in tennis, Italy became the first nation to win the Davis Cup 3 times in a row in 53 years, since the USA won it 5 years in a row from 1968 to 1972. They won both their singles matches as they beat Spain 2-0. Anthony Teixeira, Eyewitness News Sport.
EWN Traffic.
16 minutes before 9 o'clock. Final traffic update for breakfast this morning. Amma, what do you see?
Well, Bongani, we've got an accident leaving Rand Park Ridge. It's on the N1 North. It happened right after Bayers Nodia Drive. It's causing delays. There's also queuing traffic in 4 ways along Winnie Mandela Drive towards the N1 exit. While traveling in Calvin, those roadworks are still causing delays between Vincent Chabalala Road and the Baklu interchange. And I see Marlborough Drive is also affected due to people trying to avoid the backlog on the N3 North. And then traveling on the N3 South in the Bedford View area, an accident right near Van Buren Road. Delays coming out of the Kilulis interchange. I'll have your next traffic update at the top of the hour. Do stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Let's count backward. 5. Insurance. 4. Pineapple. 3. Insurance. 2. Pineapple. 1. You're under. Pineapple FSP 48650 is underwritten by Omart Insure Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP.
Get online exclusive Black Friday deals for 3 days only at Pick n Pay ASAP and Mr. D. Get 200-gram Nescafe Gold Instant Coffee or 230-gram refill for only 140 Rand each. And 600-gram Parmalat cheese for only 84 Rand 99. Shop like a champion. Save like a champion. Only on Pick n Pay ASAP and Mr. D. Valid 24 to 26 November while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
Let me get this right, Ron. You're a plumber by day and Pretoria's smoothest wedding DJ by night.
Yeah, it started out as a passion and now I've got bookings until December. And a smoke machine that needs its own seatbelt.
And you sold your car to buy a van through We Buy Cars.
Bro, it was music to my ears. Zero admin, no long queues. They pulled in, checked it out, and before I knew it, I had cash in the bank.
Now that's a banger. We Buy Cars. Geared for your passion, geared for you.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
Hey, morning bongs. Kirna, I know how to resolve conflict, because I do it in my relationship and it's it's effective. The problem is my mom. She doesn't want to sit with me. When there's a problem, she doesn't want to sit with me. She'd rather go to either a neighbor or a family member and then tell them what the problem is, and then that person must come and, in inverted commas, mediate. But the problem is that when that mediator comes with already her story. She already knows who the problem is and how to solve it, opposed to coming here and listening to both sides and trying to resolve the issue. But now she doesn't want to sit with me alone and solve small things that can be solved. Like, it's just a challenge.
Coming up
on the Clement Manyatela Show
on 702.
I've got to say, there was stellar coverage on 702 of the G20 summit. Central, of course, to the coverage were my colleagues, John Perlman, Stephen Curtis, and Clement Manyatela, who joins us now in the studio to tell us about what's coming up in his show. But perhaps a quick reflection on the weekend, being in the plenary, watching the world leaders, watching the little huddles in the little corners. What was your sense of watching this bit of history unfold?
Well, first, appreciation. Like, I really feel blessed to have been part of such a big, significant gathering. And I think you learn so much about diplomacy when you're at events like this. And what
did you learn?
I mean, language matters. Like, diplomacy
is around consensus. I mean, I was reading the declarations, the 30-page declarations, that you can see that the reason there's a full stop here, it's intentional.
Yeah.
That comma there is intentional. How you phrase certain things. So it's not a matter of agreeing that the war in Sudan should end. It's how do you actually frame it, because you need consensus from everybody in the room. So you appreciate things like that. But it was a significant moment. It was well run, well strategized, even politically, from our own government. And I think they deserve to be praised for it.
What do you say to the criticism that with the tantrums coming from the White House, perhaps it would have been better to just say nothing?
Yeah, until when? I think at some point, as a sovereign state, you need to put your foot down. I don't think our president did it in an uncanny, uncouth way. He was still diplomatic when it required him to be. In fact, he spoke about the discussions that were still taking place between the US and South Africa, even when he knew that the US wants to send a junior delegation. He still gave it time because he wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt to rethink that. But when the moment required for him to still be firm and say this is the protocol of G20 and we're not going to be sent around by one country, he rose to the occasion. I mean, for how long must we submit to the US's quote-unquote bullying?
All right, what's on the show?
So we must choose whether we are a sovereign state or not. So on the show today, we're going to pick up from what happened at the G20 summit over the weekend. I'll say some of the reflections and some of the things that came out, and I want to ask the listeners how they have assessed it. At 10 o'clock, we speak to Zane Dango. He's the Director General of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. He served as the G20 shepherd. This is the man who was making sure the negotiations were taking place, the task forces, what's going to be in the declarations. 10:30, we continue with our series looking at South African wars. Today, we're talking about the Sikukune Wars. And then we wrap up the show at 11 o'clock with our Family Matters feature. Today, we're discussing how to deal with a lack of emotional availability and vulnerability in families. And how do you cultivate that?
Clement Manyatela, between 9 and 12.
Smart Steve from Momentum, hello.
Smart Steve, my daughter just turned 18, right? And now she's got a license and a boyfriend.
You're worried about her safety. With Momentum Safety Alert, she can access help 24/7.
Is that the emergency response version of Curry in a Hurry?
For sure. She can get help at the touch of a button for free.
Free? For all that and all?
Visit momentum.co.za or call 0860 006 784. Momentum Insure, keeping you safe on your journey to success. Momentum Insure is an authorized non-life insurer. T's and C's apply.
If you want a versatile SUV that's smart, efficient, and seriously advanced, meet the all-new BYD Sea Lion 5 plug-in hybrid. It's the affordable SUV that gives you electric power for your everyday trips, fuel-powered backup for your longer drives, and premium tech everywhere you look. The BYD Sea Lion 5 is packed with cutting-edge technology, from advanced driver assist safety features to the groundbreaking DMI technology. The BYD Sea Lion 5 makes every drive smarter. Visit www.byd.com and pre-book your test drive today. BYD, build your dreams.
Managing all your office communications, including incoming and outgoing calls at the same time, can be tough. Trust Telkom Business to simplify your communication lines. Perfect for any business looking to expand further with the ultimate unified communication solution. Get the fully installed hybrid PABX EMG100 system starting from just 599 Rand per month with an additional 10% off.
This Black Friday, your business deserves the best. Visit telkom.co.za/business. T's and C's apply. Telkom Business. Possible begins here.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. A festival that's beginning to feel a little like home. Hugh Fest returns on the 30th of November at the beautiful Narox Sculpture Park. Music, art, nature, heritage, all blending into one. And it's kind of a reunion because we've been doing this now for a number of years. All of it, of course, inspired by the legendary Brahu Masekela. This year's lineup is stacked. Shekinah, the Soul Brothers, Mikasa, Madala Kunene, and Sibusisile Xaba. The Brother Moves On, and I Complete. And I think it's a mix that's going to speak to almost every generation. As always, Pulatwala co-organizer, also one of Brahu Masekela's daughters, joins us to talk us through this. Pula, it's our annual conversation, this, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Hello, Bongani. Thank you for always having us.
Listen, it's absolutely fantastic. And
Yes.
each year you outdo yourselves with the selection in terms of
Thank
the
you.
lineup, but there's so much more to enjoy at the Hugh Fest. For anyone who's never been, how would you describe the feeling of the Hugh Fest?
I think the feeling of the Hugh Fest is it's a family setting, but what it also is like a beautiful celebration of who we really are. You know, it's a celebration of our culture. It's a celebration of our heritage, as you mentioned, and just the beauty of having that kind of intergenerational, intergenre performance as well as crowd, because we have, you know, children coming in, and we have Play Africa that caters for them to play in the area. People come with their mothers, their gogos, their aunties, because we've got people like the Soul Brothers and Madala Kunene. What it does is it gives you the feeling of, you know, who we are right now, who we used to be, and who we want to become. And it's nature, it's a beautiful sculpture park. So it's beautiful family vibes in the park, which really reminds us of how we used to socialize.
I love how you're framing this lineup, which is so well curated, because I suppose in the spirit of Brahu, you would know this better than I, but in the spirit of Brahu, my impression was of somebody who, even though he was so wise, still had this young soul and remained relevant to every generation that came, particularly when it comes to music. This is now the 12th edition of the festival. Can you believe it?
Oh, we cannot believe it. We are so proud. Our baby is becoming a teenager next year. So it really has been an amazing journey, because we come from Soweto, from Alexandra, and now we're in the cradle of humankind. And just to go back to what you said about, you know, the kind of person that Brahu was, one of his most beautiful lines is love, learn, and teach. And he moved in his career as somebody who was a lifetime student and a lifetime teacher and a big collaborator. You know, we know how much work he's done with like Thandiswa Mazwai and Herb Albert and Kipi Mweketsi. So he's just been somebody who loved to understand other people's sound and music and learned it, and was a big dancer, just a huge collaborator. So our lineup also is influenced by the person that he was in terms of collaborating, in terms of learning, in terms of teaching, and obviously always spreading love wherever he was.
Of course, he was so much more. I mean, it feels almost silly to suggest, but he was so much more than even the music, although as far as that is concerned, he is a giant. He was an activist. He was a storyteller. He was this person who cared about young people in particular. He had this incredible passion for that. How does the Hugh Fest bring all of those elements of remembering him together?
It brings in a lot of, you know, again, like we said, his collaborations, the joy of him being a collaborator with Madala Kunene and Sibusile Xaba. That is what happens. It's an intergenerational conversation. We've got a young Shekinah who used to love just attending. I mean, back in the day when I was a teenager, he loved attending kwaito shows. So he loved going to listen to what the new sound is, what young people are doing. And so people like Mikasa, Jay Something has collaborated many times with Hugh as well. And Shekinah represent that. And then he loved, you know, the sound from home. You can hear from his music, there's a lot of Maskandi and Batanga influence. So people like the Soul Brothers. His relationship with Bongani Bingwa also gives you that sound of that. So the lineup and the festival really bring him in that way as a great collaborator, a lover of music, and really a lover of, you know, celebration and joy and culture and heritage and everybody being under one roof at the same time and not segregating crowds.
I'm going to indulge myself here because as you are talking about the Mbaqanga influence in his music, it just occurred to me now, and for the many times we've spoken, I've never thought about it until this moment. Your name comes from one of my favorite Brahu songs, Mutalipula.
Yes, yeah. That was recorded in Botswana when he had lived in Botswana for a while. And, you know, as we are talking about Brahu being a social activist, that song actually speaks about the big drought in Botswana at the time. So, you know, it screams for the rain to come and for people to pray. And so he was great. I mean, that's a dance song. But when you listen closely, you can hear that this is a social activist who was living in Botswana and speaking about what is important to Botswana at the time. So, yeah, I love that song for exactly that because it really does not lament over his daughter. And it speaks about society and what was important and what still remains important. And with this very rain, Mutlalipula is really the name we don't want to speak this week, actually, for our festival. It can come back on Monday.
The Hugh Fest takes place on the 30th of November at the Narok Sculpture Park. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Where do people get tickets?
People get tickets on Howler and as well as on nyroxarts.com. And please hurry. We are already like 80% sold and we are on this Sunday. At the Nairo Sculpture Park. It's a festival for the whole family. So please come and join us.
Well, always a pleasure to talk to you. And thank you so much
for so much, organizing. For always having us.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure. Co-organizer of the Hugh Fest, as she says, 80% of tickets already sold. You can't think of a better place and context to celebrate heritage, culture, and Brahu.
702 podcasts are on 702.co.za.
And that's it for this edition of 702 Breakfast. I will see you bright and early on Thursday morning. You'll be in the comfortable hands of Ray White for the next 2 days because I'm off to go Master Chef. It's going to be exciting. I'll tell you all about it when I'm back. It's 9 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The South African Weather Service is warning of more heavy downpours in KwaZulu-Natal, where 3 people were washed away by floods. Homes, bridges and other critical infrastructure have been damaged as emergency teams continue with a search mission in New Hanover in the Midlands. Nhlenhla Mabaso reports.